In the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt. Hot take from the right, left, center, and crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning. It's a simple analysis. Most importantly, it's called Denver's voice heard loud and clear. Coffee Denver, what's not that are most right here, right now. By the way, out on YouTube, Bubble Fight, and you change your radio with you. You'll watch this. It's going to be a busy week. Man, we've got a lot going on. Tuesday night, public system primaries will be decided here in Colorado. So when it's going to take the party's lead and nomination and run on into the election, and doing all of that from the Attorney General race and Dr. Pathways. Here's it up.
And that's is realize like before speaking in I would like to have in mind that me say that you are for and yep, absolutely something else candidate because you support and so all I'm going to do is you are looking for a attorney who find truth. That sometimes it maybe you figure out how you're not on the air anymore. I mean, this is wrong. What it says these those skills you have a bit to do. You can't figure out you're going to figure out on three not job that is absolutely can't help
this. Yeah. You've been in radio longer.
I know.
Somebody gets tired of Are they going out that one interview?
Never. I mean, because they need to different directions. If it's a, hey, you're fired, no. And the answer of that, and the example of that, are there are numerous people around radio stations. I mean, it took an act of God to build a house. We had to sign off on it. They had to sign off on it. It was he had to thing. I mean, there are things not go back and do that after fire. You can just go or downsize, but then there will be more meat to it. And the issue is that and I guess it's that last time as well. That same thing. Cool. And your part is. Here, you're going to have an attorney rule, and we have a candidate that isn't concerned about going out and finding out that's huge indictment. Ability to stop anything else that happens. Incredible. Their lack of ability to stop. Actually, continue.
My favorite over the weekend was a tweet that had to do with saying that both George and George had been planning that.
No.
All at the same time.
long-term plan to get quickly fired. What? Hold on. And again, this is the problem inside of that tweet. This is the case the person is making about her opponent. When she gets into the courtroom, what do you think her ability to make the case and draw the timeline is going to be? If this is her timeline, if the timeline she creates in order to indict her opponent is planning it for a long time and then happens suddenly, that's not a convincing jury of anything. You can't come to a jury with they planned this crime and then it happened suddenly. They planned murdering their wife for months and months and months, and then they decided quickly to do it. What? You're going to lose every one of those cases.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Thorpe was deciding to rob the bank and planned it for 6 months, and then on a whim also realized he had no money and needed to rob a bank.
Yes, exactly. It's just, you're not going to win any of those cases. So again.
Wait, what was it?
Yeah, what was that? Not a single juror is going to vote for that. So, okay. Yeah, just remember who you're voting for.
All right. So speaking of Republican primaries, after the news, I want to get into the Democrat primaries because we really haven't covered this much. And tomorrow is going to be a very big race with Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez, not against each other, but they've both been primaried, and pretty much the entire Democrat establishment has turned against these two. How are they going to do? We'll talk about them and their opponents right after the news. Then we'll get into Pride Parade, interrupted over the weekend by Gaza protests.
People that don't understand who they're supporting. That's okay. Oh, well.
And the New York Times doing a big piece on how the Gaza war is dividing the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, it is. And again, based on, in all honesty, mostly stupidity. But that's okay. And again, it goes back to, and we'll talk about it, it goes back to some of the basic good guy, bad guy, oppressor, oppressed, easy delineations that people have been making that really aren't that easy. So, it's going to be fun.
So lots of news to cover, but let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, wait a minute. Good morning, guys. So that story of Kelly and George wrestling in the hallway when he left, that isn't true.
Fisticuffs.
No.
And all those microphones being thrown around.
No, not at all.
And the windows being...
No, that was Peter.
Oh, that was Peter.
Yeah,
now I'm getting it all straight. Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
Yes, exactly.
Appreciate it, guys. 66 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 90s today. A heat wave up and down the Front Range today for the next few days. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, 2 people are in custody in connection with an early Saturday morning shooting in Lone Tree. It happened along East Heritage Hills Parkway, and the person who was shot has since been released from the hospital. Police haven't said what led to the shooting or what charges the suspects may be facing. Another wildlife crossing in Colorado is now open. It's the first along the interstate, I-70, mountain corridor spanning 2 miles to help protect elk, bears, bobcats, and others. State officials say the area between Lookout Mountain and Genesee exits has the most accidents involving animals east of the Eisenhower Tunnel. And they believe the underpass and fencing will reduce those crashes by up to 90%. A motorcyclist is dead following a crash in Brighton over the weekend. It happened Saturday night on Prairie Center Parkway, where officials say a 44-year-old man crashed his motorcycle into a concrete median and was thrown from the bike. He was taken to a hospital where he died of his injuries. Today marks 2 years since the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, which Roe v. Wade, which unraveled the right to an abortion, and the left will use this more than any other issue this week, I'm sure. The presidential debate is Thursday. Former President Trump in Philly at Tony and Nick's Steaks.
This country is corrupt, and what they're doing with the weaponization, they're going to be ashamed of themselves.
Are you worried about going to jail, Mr. President?
No, I'm not worried at all. I'm not worried at all. You know what? Doesn't bother me. Nothing bothers me. We have a corrupt group of people. And you know what?
It's corrupt.
And it's really working out the other way. We just got the highest poll numbers we've ever had. Rasmussen Rasmussen just gave us, we have a 10-point lead, 10 points. But you know what? They cheat so much that 10 points isn't enough. We have to get more.
Senator Lindsey Graham slams President Biden over his latest action allowing certain illegal immigrants married to U.S. citizens to stay in the country. He said, it's a disaster. Colorado setting a record, as Jeff and Billy just talking about. They're about to talk about this, but they set a record with its 50th Denver Pride Parade. About 100,000 people turned out Sunday to watch it, including Governor Polis. He joined a rooftop crowd at the center on Colfax saying love is love. And it's great to celebrate the half-century mark. And you know what? The vice president, speaking of all this stuff, Kamala Harris in a promotional video. Here's part of it.
Hi. We talk.
Okay, that sounds like two women, right? That is a dude in a dress with a beard. And they go on and on. I guess it's the cast of Queer Eye or something like that, some ridiculousness. And the world used to laugh at Dan Quayle for spelling potato wrong. And now it's okay for the BP to push men in dresses. Hey, news brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace and patio and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. The Rockies making history. They beat the Nationals on Saturday with the first walk-off pitch clock violation. All right, the game was tied at 7 in the ninth with bases loaded and no outs. The pitcher only had 18 seconds to throw the pitch, but didn't do it in time. The violation forced the winning run across the plate, leading the Rockies to victory. However, last night...
Finnegan on 0-2. It is in there! And the game, the series, over. The Nets will get a 2 spot in the ninth.
So the Nationals win 2-1. I think the moral of the story here is we need more pitch clock violations for the Rockies. The Stanley Cup trophy will finally make its way onto the ice tonight after the Edmonton Oilers forced the Game 7 in the NHL Championship Series versus the Panthers. It's in South Florida tonight. That should be a lot of fun this evening for the Stanley Cup Championship. 63 in Broomfield, 62 in Castle Pines, 66 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It is Monday. Good morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, you know, Billy, we've been the center of a lot of controversy among the Republicans in the Republican primary debates, the direction of the Republican Party, but we haven't covered the Democrats as well as we probably should have. And there's two big races that are going to tell us about the future of the Democrat Party in Colorado, Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez. We often call them Elizabeth Hernandez or Timmy Epps. They're kind of joined at the hip when it comes to their just outright anti-Semitism. They hate Israel and would often interrupt the only Republican Jewish leader down at the state capitol anytime he spoke. But they have some primary challenges, and it's fascinating to me to see how the Democrats are responding here, because Republicans, we always take our differences out into the public.
Yes, that's true.
I don't like you. I'm not going to call you. I'm going to go send blast emails and mailers and go on the radio and talk about you. Democrats on the other side typically don't do that. They're generally pretty well organized when it comes to, how they're going to engage in public, and they're all always on the same page, kind of vote for blue no matter who type of thinking. But then when you have two that literally are kind of heading off the reservation a bit, they will primary them and put in a lot of money to defeat them. So Elizabeth Epps, let's talk about her first. She's a lawyer by training, longtime community and criminal justice activist in Colorado. She was first elected to the legislature in 2022. By the way, the Sun did a great job breaking down these two races, because these are the Colorado Sun, because these are the two kind of big Democrat primaries that'll tell you which direction the Democrat Party is going to go. And these are generally the most liberal. Elizabeth Epps, Timmy Hernandez, most liberal and progressive Colorado lawmakers. But mainstream Democrats have had enough of them. So what do I mean by that? Well, Epps was at the center of several controversies during her first term, resulting in a formal reprimand from the House Speaker, a fellow Democrat, and her removal from the House Judiciary Committee, the Sun reports. Both of those happened after Epps left the House floor during a special legislative session on property taxes last year, joined pro-Palestinian protesters in the chamber's gallery who were calling for a ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas, and she proceeded to shout during a speech delivered by Representative Ron Weinberg, who's Jewish, responding to Epps' comments about the conflict. The outburst prompted a long recess before Weinberg continued his remarks. Then she got so angry that she decided she wasn't going to show up for 45 days in person for work. So, typically Democrats aren't so openly anti-Semitic, but with Epps and Hernandez, you do. So Democrats went out there to go find somebody, and his name to replace her, and his name is Sean Camacho, Camacho. Now, this guy at one point was a Republican.
Really?
Which is kind of his weakness.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So he said, well, I grew up in a Christian conservative family. We lived in Colorado Springs. Everybody was kind of a Republican. And then I've changed my positions along the way. He's not that much more centrist than she is on policy. Yeah. He's against Tabor. He's for unrestricted abortion, all that. But he's a former vet. He was an Air Force Academy graduate who went on to serve as an intelligence officer, deploying to Iraq, Afghanistan, East Africa, and Colombia. He then attended law school and now practices government contracts litigation and commercial litigation for Denton's law firm, and is a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve. So they're going to try to run this guy against her.
Interesting. And I personally think he would do better pushing off any Republican challengers. Now, right now, based on the state of the Republican Party, you don't really have to worry about that per se. But if Dave Williams is tacking the boat in the right direction, then maybe you do have to worry about this. And I do think that Epps has too much baggage.
Yep.
It's just the idea that she's not going to be viewed as a reasonable or reputable lawmaker anymore. So they do need to move on from her if they're smart. Now, again, they have so many extra seats, they don't have to. They can continue to George Santos her and just keep her around for fun. But it makes a lot of sense to move on to the military guy, especially a former Republican. I still say that is a good, strong message for Colorado, because the one thing I believe the Democrats are starting to do is get just a bit too comfortable with their majorities. They're beginning to get too comfortable with being able to run their crazy ideas, and they're forgetting that the largest cohort of voters in the state are unaffiliated, and by quite a bit. I mean, if it keeps going this direction, the unaffiliateds are going to double both the Democrats and Republicans together if it keeps going this direction. So they need to remember that perhaps taking someone that has some Republican credentials, whether or not they're actually conservative, is going to help you in the future if he is somewhat of a long-term lawmaker. That can help, especially if you're going to move him into Senate and some other stuff. So
remember, Elizabeth Epps was the one that wanted to do the safe injection sites.
Yes.
This was her great idea.
Oh,
so in addition to being just crazy anti-Semitic.
Yeah. And that entire thing when they were debating the issue about whether or not they need to divest from funding in Israel and stuff, that entire speech and how she just went off the rails there, that will be used, should be used accurately in any sort of election against her, because that is not something that the average voter in Colorado is going to support.
To this point, and I need to correct myself because there's a great text message. No one's a former vet. They're former active military. True. And I made a mistake there. So thank you for correcting me, Mr.
You just end up being a
1625
former soldier once they put you in the ground. You're still that's it. You're just not doing it. You're still a vet. Yeah, you're still service member.
So what's interesting about Elizabeth Epps, so you have somebody that, as you mentioned, went off and was crazy anti-Semitic, and then ran these injection sites. By the way, her opponent is not fully opposed to the idea of injection sites.
Of course he can.
He just thinks there needs to be more recovery ideas as opposed to it. But this is going to be a good test on where the Democrat Party goes, because they, after all this stuff, they didn't come out and say Elizabeth Epps is an embarrassment. They didn't run efforts to try to get her out of there or get her to resign like Republicans do. I mean, just look at the whole thing over Dave Williams this last week, right? It's all out in public, and this party's leading, or this county party's leading an effort to get him out. And this county party's on, but this county party's standing with him. So we have it all. We have all of our discussions up front.
Yeah.
They don't do that. Democrats don't do that. So they're quietly running this guy, but they're putting a lot of money. So listen to this. They have put $225,000, all the PAC money spending, in fact, all of it, 100% has gone behind her opponent, Sean Camacho.
C-A-M-A-C-H-O. It might be Camacho.
Camacho.
Yeah.
Sean Camacho.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sean Camacho gets all the money, including gets endorsements by Jared Polis and pretty much every lawmaker, Phil Weiser, Michael Bennett. They've all endorsed this guy.
They're voting Epps off the island is what they're doing.
Exactly.
But they can. Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that they're not willing to do it super publicly. So think about this. Jared Polis, Phil Weiser, Jenna Griswold, all Jewish, right?
Yep.
And Elizabeth Epps, I mean, just outright offensive in her language towards Israel. And they have to take her out quietly out of the Democrat Party because they can't go out there and go, this is not who we are as Democrats. She needs to go, resign in shame, walk out that door.
Yeah.
Get out of here, Elizabeth.
Yeah, they didn't take the strong, and it would have been better for them to take that strong statement. And I think it personally, it won't matter long term, but I think it hurts Polis more than it hurts Weiser, just because of where we think Polis wants to go. But again, it won't be remembered long term. And the same thing with Timmy Hernadez, the terrorist enthusiast. There's so many things, like you saw the picture of him this weekend, right? He's
down at the Pride with the Palestinian flag.
Yes, so he's with the Palestinian flag and the protesters, and up on stage celebrating Pride. It's again, he's supposed to be a teacher. Does he understand the difference in the West Bank and Gaza, as far as even those small Palestinian enclaves, the difference in LGBTQ rights? In one group, you don't have any. In another, you're just allowed to exist, but you better not tell anybody. You better not say anything about it or anything else, because there still are things on the books in which you get punished for it. So just being overtly homosexual or trans or anything in Gaza, I believe it's the West Bank, I forget which one it's which. One of them has a much more open policy towards them, where the other is like, we better not see you holding hands with a dude or another woman. You better not, or something bad is going to happen to you. And you're like, wait, that's the people and the governing system that he is supporting at the same time that he's standing on stage at Pride. It's just ridiculous. And yeah, we'll get into the protesters and stuff down there, but it's just, what does he think he's doing? But then again, hopefully more and more of the Democrats will call him out, because yeah, he's a stain, and he is someone that, if he retains his seat, he should be the poster boy from the GOP for the Colorado Democrats. He should be the face of the Colorado Democrats. Make him and his stances representative of Colorado Democrats. Say, this is the guy they wouldn't kick out of their party. This is the guy that they not just wanted, but named. They chose him. Very special. They didn't actually make him run through the process. They made him an automatic incumbent. And so if he makes it through this process, he should be made the poster boy, just like they did with Heroin Barbie, with Pedersen. Same thing. That's what you need to do.
She went on to become a congresswoman.
Yeah, she did. But it did hurt the idea of the safe injection sites. It did hurt the brand of the Democrats going, wait a minute, you guys are a little bit too loony. So you need to hang that on her. And again, we can talk about why she won the congressional seat, but that's a whole nother thing.
So we'll get into Tim Hernandez versus Cecilia Espinoza in just a second, but Sean Camacho,
I believe.
Camacho. I'll get that right. It's Monday morning. Elizabeth Epps versus Sean Camacho. Now, this is a 60+% Democrat district. It's not going to be won by a Republican. That would take a big act of God to do that. So whoever wins the primary tomorrow is going to tell you the future of the Democrat Party in Colorado. Now, I actually think Timmy Hernandez has a better chance of winning than Elizabeth Epps.
I do too.
And that gets into the fact that the PAC spending in Timmy Hernandez's has kind of split. So some money, particularly teachers' unions, have come beside Timmy Hernandez and said, we're willing to support him. But with Epps, like nothing. She is all out there on her own. And it is very clear the Democrat Party's had enough of her crazy. But it's not just party leadership that decides campaigns. So if she wins tomorrow, what does that tell Colorado? What does it tell us about the direction of the Democrat Party in Colorado? Are they getting just as extremists, just to the edge, supporting the candidates that, that are clearly out there more, just as much as, the media complains Republicans are. So,
and what opportunities does that create? Because if it is, if Epps retains, and I still think if Hernandez retains, that creates a nice messaging opportunity for Republicans headed into the fall. They may not be able to unseat either of the two, but you can use it for turnout and enthusiasm in other races. And even in that race, you can use it for, we need to get as many as possible because look where the Democrats are going. This is the acceptable candidate. Yeah.
And the other thing I want to point out is Dave Williams getting a lot of heat for picking and choosing his primary opponent or primary candidates to go into November with.
Yep.
And this is what I've said all along. I understand that Dave is doing this in an unconventional way. I understand that Dave is doing this out in the open. I understand everybody can see this. But the idea that party leaders are purposely trying to impact elections to get the candidates they want, let me show you example and evidence A and B. Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez. And what Jared Polis and the Democrats are trying to do is essentially steer the primary so they get the candidates they want.
Yeah. So they just didn't do it publicly. Like, Williams did it. That's it.
That's
just didn't hurt feelings that way. They did it behind the scenes. Yeah. Which is, you're absolutely right.
So give us a call. Let us know what you think about these two races. We're going to talk about Timmy Hernandez in a second, but Elizabeth Epps, Tim Hernandez, two of Colorado legislature's most liberal lawmakers battling to keep their jobs. We're going to know tomorrow night where this all goes. What do you think of Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez? Are they actually more mainstream liberals and Democrats? Is that where the party is going? Or are they fringe extremists and the Democrats are right to kick them to the curb? 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. I want to talk to you about Ultra Curb, my friends at Ultra Botanica. UltraCur is a patented non-prescription natural capsule that works fast. It's a daily supplement that helps you deal with your soreness, and it gives you the true edge to support your peak wellness, energy, and active lifestyle. Look, there's plenty of curcumin products out there on the market. They're going to make you pay to try it, but not UltraCur. They believe so much in their product, they're willing to give it away for free. Go to any Denver Metro natural grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of UltraCur. UltraCur gives you unique control over your daily wellness. It's gentle on your stomach, and it's a natural antioxidant. Get curious, Denver. Head to the natural grocers and grab your free 3-day UltraCur trial with no strings attached. If you're wondering about the research, get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Stuart Smith, and here are the top stories we're following. Israel's defense minister is visiting the US Capitol, where he's expected to discuss the future of Gaza with top US officials. As our Washington correspondent Jagruti Dave reports, Yoav Gallant's trip comes at a time of growing tensions between the US and Israel and fears of the Gaza conflict widening.
In a statement, Yoav Gallant said that he planned to meet with his US counterpart, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, as well as US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken on his visit. He also said that Israel is prepared for any action that may be required in Gaza, Lebanon, and in more areas. And that's a reference to the fact that Hezbollah and Israel have been trading attacks across the Lebanese border, sparking fears across the region of a spillover of the Gaza war.
A family in Naples, Florida is suing NASA for damage caused to their home when a 1.6-pound metal pellet tore through their roof. The metal cylinder was released from the International Space Station in 2021, but took until March 2024 to fall back to Earth. The family claimed the 4-inch by 2-inch debris nearly hit their son 2 rooms over. NASA has 6 months to respond to the claim. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Stuart Smith in London on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. All right, so past few weeks, month, we've all been talking about the Republican primaries and the competitiveness and the back and forth, and we even got pulled into it over the weekend on Twitter between George and Dagna and all that stuff. But there's actually really big primaries going on within the Democrats that are going to shape the direction of the Democrat Party, particularly here in Colorado. Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez, two of Colorado legislators' most liberal lawmakers, are facing serious battles within their own party to keep their jobs. And that comes in part because of Jared Polis's leadership. He doesn't want this type of Democrat in the state legislature. Now, Elizabeth Epps is facing more challenges than Tim Hernandez is. Pretty much everyone's abandoned Elizabeth Epps here. She's facing her primary opponent, Sean Camacho, and he's a former Republican that's now moved over to the Democrat Party. He's happy to embrace the progressive ideology, and he's pro-choice. He's against Tabor. He's okay with needle injection sites so long as there's better care for people going there. But he's not crazy anti-Semitic as much as Elizabeth Epps is, interrupting Jewish lawmakers the way she did during the following October 7th. But Billy, this article by Colorado Sun, they have a picture of her. She's just got the scowl on her face. They make her look so bad.
I tell you, that is okay. This is one of my games that I play in the media, and it's how bad can we make the picture? And I find this entertaining. This is just a side thing that I do. We can see based on the political leanings of certain sites. They like and dislike certain political figures and public figures. And so I enjoy seeing the ones that are, and we're talking about it's also like the Breitbarts. You get the Mother Joneses. I mean, you get the people that are more on some of the edges. And when you see them pick a picture, they always have to pick the worst ones. And I enjoy that because it's always that, that shot in where they're saying something like, and they get their mouth open and it makes them look awful and they're lit poorly. And so I just want to know, whose job is it? I want to meet the person at that website and, at those media outlets that it's your job to find the bad pictures. I just think there's got to be somebody that has to do it. I just want to meet that person because that's got to be a really entertaining job to go around there and say, oh, how can I find the really bad pictures of Hillary Clinton? What one should we use here? And some of the ones they choose, the ones you choose for Trump are awful at times. Just absolutely horrible. And then Biden, it's always like, he's like, where am I? That's every single one of them. That's all the pictures of him.
The just gazing stare off into the nowhere land.
Yes,
it's
their stare that everybody that has worked a restaurant knows. When the early crowd comes in around 4:30 and you ask if they want the special, and it takes 30 seconds to answer.
Hey, I eat my dinners now at 4:30.
Oh, I know.
That's because I get up early.
Exactly.
So what's also interesting about these two districts, I know that they lean Democrat 60+%. They're not going to have Republican victories, but Elizabeth Epps' district now, as it's been redrawn, is a very nice part of Denver. It's kind of that eastern portion of Denver where you get into the nice tree-lined streets. And I've talked to my Jewish friends about this. It's a very predominantly Jewish part of Denver.
Yeah.
And so the fact that their lawmaker not only, supports Palestine, but when the only Republican Jewish lawmaker got up to make remarks, shouted him down from the gallery along with pro-Palestinian protesters.
Yeah.
She's just a whole nother level.
That she was in the gallery.
She went up there.
And you're like, what are you doing?
And if you watch the video, she's kind of sitting back. She's laying back. She's got her feet up and she's just hollering things and interrupting and all that stuff.
Yeah. She looks like the kid in the back of the class in every 80s high school movie that is disrupting. That's what she's doing. She looks like exactly that kid.
But a much ruder, horrible way.
Completely.
Especially after what our Jewish friends went through on October 7th.
And the idea that she goes up into the gallery and then starts to yell at her colleagues. Come on.
So now Timmy Hernandez isn't much better. If you remember, Timmy, on the day that the attacks took place, on October 7th, right, because of the time delay, there's hours that have now passed. the Palestinians went down to the state capitol and held a rally for Palestine on the same day that the attacks took place. And Timmy went down. He was caught on video down there, basically siding with Palestine, being rude to Jews.
Yeah.
So he's facing a challenge as well. But now look, it's not quite as stark. In fact, about 25 lawmakers, I believe, Democrat House lawmakers are standing with him in his primary.
Jeez.
Whereas
really?
Elizabeth Epps has 0.
I'd be curious, who's standing with him. And again, I also would be curious because, he went down to rally for Palestine on the day of the attacks. I'm curious if he showed up for the pro-Osama bin Laden rally on September 11th. I'm wondering if he held one of those too. Because again, terrorist organization, it was an attack executed by Hamas on innocents. So that needs to be the filter. He wasn't down there rallying for Palestinians. He was down there on the day that Hamas had committed a terrorist attack, and he was supporting the people that they support. That needs to be a reminder, and a reminder that he was there supporting the pro-Palestinians and pro-Hamas protesters at the Pride Festival, and then stood on the stage to say that he supports Pride, understanding that the people he is supporting, the Palestinians, aren't pro-Pride. They're not at all. I saw a conversation recently, and someone asked, okay, all the protesters there that are, that are part of the LGBTQ community, go to Gaza for a week, see how you're treated. Say the same things, have the same T-shirts, just try to do the same march. Right. And see what happens to you. Yeah. So be careful who you're supporting.
Here's who's endorsed him: Senator Julie Gonzalez, Representative Breonna Tattone, Senator Robert Rodriguez, lots of reps, including Leslie Herod, Javier Mabry. By the way, I've been down at the state cap. I'm
sorry. I talked in your ear.
I'm sorry. I thought you were. I maybe pronounced his name wrong.
No.
Which is regular. Chris Kennedy. Joe Salazar, lots of folks, Lorena Garcia. So a lot of the Democrats down there. Here's what I think's happening.
Yeah.
Billy, and you know this.
Yeah.
A lot of times your success in your career comes down to your ability and your likability among your colleagues.
That's true. Yeah. That's absolutely true.
I think while Hernandez is just as crazy as Epps is, I think he's more likable among his Democrat colleagues than Epps, and that is partially why she has literally no endorsements from her colleagues.
I think you're right.
While he does, even though he's just as far out on the left on these policies as Epps is.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're right. I think you're right on that one.
Yeah, it matters. I tell my kids this all the time. Your likability can carry you very far and cover up for some really crazy stuff.
Absolutely. It's there. If you are liked enough by the staff, it can prevent you from being fired. Yeah, it absolutely can. Yes, absolutely.
So my guess is Hernandez keeps his seat. Now his opponent is a more moderate Democrat. She's never been a Republican. Her name is Cecilia Espinoza, and they're going to try to see if she can kind of balance it out a little bit. This is what she said. Where's that quote? That basically her opponent, the Democratic Socialists, she went up against him on that vacancy committee. It's the difference between the two of them. Yeah. He got a little bit more votes than she did. And she said the Democrat Socialists effectively rallied to stack the vacancy committee, which is why my opponent is in office at all. That push is pretty strong to pull the party way far to the left, which I don't believe is where the rest of the majority of Democrats in even Denver are. Now, their district is like Wheat Ridge.
Oh, okay.
So there's a chance he could lose. But my guess, where I'm going to put the money, is that Elizabeth Epps loses and Tim Hernandez wins tomorrow.
That seems smart. Yeah. I think you're right.
All right, we'll get to Marty in just a second. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. Marty, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Marty.
Hey, guys, great stuff. I think what you got to keep in mind twofold is there's no such thing as a moderate Democrat. I mean, it's a race to extremism, and that's how we know that because we see them, all in on the abortions in the delivery room, the child advocacy for sex changes. And so if you think there's a Democrat, though, that's willing to break rank and say, you know what, I don't think the way we're treating children is okay anymore, and I'm standing against that, that's a Democrat you can get behind. Other than that, they're all the same. They don't have a choice. So we can't be confused by Jared Polis. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's their policies on abortion or anything like that. I think they went too far in supporting Hamas and the Palestinians, and that's the reason why they're trying to get kicked out of the party.
Yeah, and
that's why there's an effort to kick them out of the
Marty,
party.
you've got a point, Marty, in the idea of the candidates being run right now are more liberal than what we would expect here in Colorado. In part, I would say, because they don't have to pay any price for it. The example that Jeff and I talked about earlier, Brittany Pedersen, she was all in for the safe injection sites, and then she gets promoted to a higher office. So there is no negative consequences for being a Timmy Hernandez, and barely 100%. Any consequences for Elizabeth Epps. Yeah, you're right.
And hey, guys, think about this too. 3 out of 4 people are going to vote by mail-in voting. So, and I know that we're setting aside whether that's not sincere or not, but when you have to get off of your butt and walk into a polling center and hand in something and put your name on it, to me, there's just a different level of accountability and responsibility than when you check a box and stick it back in the mail and say, who knows what's going to happen? How do we know any of this stuff that's going on anyways when it's become so dominated by mail-in voting? And then we look at like, well, I can't believe Colorado's gotten so liberal, but there's no connection there. So either it's fake and corrupt, or the level of, I guess, discernment when it comes to mail-in voting, it's missing, because there's something magical about going in every 4 years and doing that thing. And we're now living in the consequences of a pretty much entirely mail-in election.
Marty, you know, the truth is we want as many people to engage in the Democrat process as possible, and mail-in voting does that. But it's the type of engaged voter that mail-in voting appeals to, right? So if you have to go stand in line, if you have to vote in person, if you have to show an ID, right, you're going to get somebody that's probably more engaged in the process, willing to take the time to go do that. They're going to study. They're going to look at the differences between the two candidates. But when you carpet bomb the entire state with mail-in ballots, well, you're going to get people that maybe aren't as tuned in and detail-oriented as they would if they had to stand in line. So you're going to get a different type of voter.
Right. And so when you see the deterioration and the rot that happens in the state, doesn't anybody step back and say, we're getting everybody involved with the product. The end game is not very good, because, again, we're aborting in the delivery room. We're a sanctuary city. We're a crime-ridden city. So even if that involves everybody, don't you have to stop back and say, well, hold on a second. These people don't know what they're doing. They're looking at an Instagram ad, and then they're voting, and then they're ruining a state. And that's the whole point of Democrats. There is no stop to them. This is parasite bacteria. They just go and devour.
I can say that, but you could. There are people who are going to have that same opinion on Republican voters, and I understand what you're saying about it, and I do agree with you that I believe that going to a physical place and going through that type of ceremony is more important. I lament the fact that we don't have that anymore. The problem is what I'm hearing from you, and this is where I kind of push back a little bit, is I'm hearing the big problem is we shouldn't have all these people voting. And that's kind of what I'm hearing, the underlying current of it. And I have a problem with that, because unfortunately, we're allowed to vote, and we're allowed to be stupid with our vote. I have cast many stupid votes. And that's kind of the issue, is that I talk to my kids all the time, and they're like, why are these politicians so stupid? And I'm like, are you looking in the mirror? We voted for every single one of them. So in some ways, it's on us for being so stupid.
Oh, fair, but how about this one then? How about this one? How about the votes that are sneaking in which they didn't earn that right to vote, a la the 50,000 illegal aliens that we know are living in Denver? Are you okay, though, if even one of those votes sneaks in? Just one illegal vote.
See, the thing for me is it would need to be able to be significant. If it's a one vote in something like a small Elbert County race, then it's significantly and statistically significant. The fact that it ends up being something like one vote in a 10,000 or 100,000 race, that doesn't matter to me. And I would have to see that large portions of the illegal immigrants would be voting, and I haven't seen that yet so far. But hey, Marty, I appreciate the phone call. Thank you so much, man. I hope you have a good day.
Marty's line will be open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Are Timmy Epps and Timmy Hernandez is like Brad Jelena.
Yes,
right?
Timmy Epps. Yes, it should
are
be.
They indicative of the party? Are they kind of more...
Are they the Democrats?
Are they the Democrats,
of
where we are today? Or are they outliers and they need to be replaced? We'll continue this conversation into the next hour. This is the primary. You need to be watching tomorrow. We're going to know all of this after 7 p.m. tomorrow night.
Yeah, what can we learn? What opportunities are out there based on the results of this primary. We'll have to see.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bell Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning. You are listening to the Jeff and Bill Show here on 710 KNUS. We're talking primaries. Now, what do you think is going to happen? We've got some Democrat primaries. Elizabeth Epps, Timmy Hernandez. Are they going to make it through? And does this create an opportunity, if they do, for Republicans as far as messaging? We're going to talk about that with you and more. But first, we're going to check in with Blake Olson's news. Morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Billy. 69 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 90s today, possibly 100. A heat wave up and down the Front Range today for the next few days. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, cooling centers will be open in Denver this week. Denver Parks and Recreation will have designated spaces to cool down in each of their recreation centers. The city says the Denver Public Library will also serve as a cooling center. A man is dead following a standoff and an officer-involved shooting in Commerce City. A 29-year-old man attacked a woman, barricaded himself inside a home, and took a person hostage inside while armed with a gun and a knife. The hostage escaped. and the suspect was eventually shot and killed by police. His identity has not been released. 2 people in custody in connection with an early Saturday morning shooting in Lone Tree. It happened along East Heritage Hills Parkway, and the person who was shot has since been released from the hospital. Police haven't said what led to the shooting or what charges to the suspects, what charges the 2 suspects may be facing. Today marks 2 years since Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. The landmark decision ended the constitutional right for an abortion and gives states the option to decide on restricting access or not. President Biden, I'm sure, will use that this Thursday in the presidential debate. Former President Trump campaigning, he was on the streets in Philadelphia over the weekend having some fun.
My strategy is very simple. Make America great again. That's all. Because our country's going to hell. And we're going to turn it around fast. There's no strategy. We're going to turn it around fast. And I look forward to Thursday. I know he's locked up in a log cabin someplace. You can imagine what he's doing.
Reportedly, Biden has been prepping with advisors at Camp David. Trump also spoke at a gathering of Christian conservatives in the nation's capital, organized by the Faith and Freedom Coalition. That's where North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson laughed at the accusations that Trump is a bully.
He's fighting all the communists. He's fighting all the socialists. He's fighting all of our enemies across the ocean. And sadly, he's fighting half the Republicans. How is this man a bully? How is he a bully?
Hey, in sports, the Rockies making history. They beat the Nationals with the first walk-off pitch clock violation. The game was tied at 7 in the ninth, with bases loaded and no outs. The pitcher had only 18 seconds to throw the pitch, but the pitcher didn't do it in time. The violation forced the winning run to come across the plate, leading the Rockies to victory. However, last night,
Finnegan on 0-2. It is in there, and the game, the series over. The Nets will get
and the Nationals win it 2-1 last night. Yes.
So Blake, sorry to interrupt, but so the Rockies, I saw it over the weekend, and so my kids and I look at each other like, the Rockies won by default.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's just so perfect.
Yes.
Man, if we could have more pitch clock violations, man, we'd have it. The Rockies would be set.
Oh, we would be challenging for the pennant. We just need to get that pitch clock violation. That's our secret weapon.
That's right. Every game, victory because of the pitch clock.
Pitch clock, yes. Make the pitch clock the MVP of the season.
Yes, absolutely. I love it.
Oh, it's great. Default. The only way the Rockies can win. Thanks, my friend.
The Stanley Cup trophy will finally make its way onto the ice tonight after the Oilers forced the Game 7 in the NHL Championship Series versus the Panthers in South Florida. That is tonight once again. Racing legend John Force has been hospitalized after a crash at the National Hot Rod Association Virginia Nationals. The 75-year-old was able to get out of his car after the engine exploded at the finish line. 62 in Boulder, 66 in Parker, and 69 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Monday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast calls for a hot start to the week. Sunny to partly sunny and toasty hot. Temperatures are going to be in the mid to upper 90s today. We're under a heat advisory. Lows tonight, mid-60s. There will be a few isolated thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. Lower 90s Tuesday, isolated late-day thunderstorms, a better chance of late-day thunderstorms, 80s and lower 90s Wednesday through Friday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, the Denver Gazette reporting over the weekend, pro-Palestinian protesters block Pride Parade in Denver, chanting "No Pride in Genocide" and saying Pride started as a riot The pro-Palestinian activists occupied the middle of the street near the intersection of Franklin Street and Colfax Avenue in Denver's Capitol Hill
It was
neighborhood.
a riot, but it was fabulous. And everybody was very well dressed and lots of glitter. Great.
Help me understand this.
Yeah.
Because I can't as a conservative.
And not everybody was kung fu fighting. I'm just saying. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry.
How I understand, you don't want somebody to be, obviously, if you believe that Israel is engaging in genocide, which I don't.
No, they're not.
But if you believe that, okay, we don't want that to happen. All right.
Correct.
But how do you go all the way to the belief that, Palestine is good, Gaza is good, especially if you're gay?
Well, the thing for me is that of all the communities, of all the cohorts that we have here in America, the support from Israel is the gays' fault. That's the group you're mad at? Really? What the hell is your list of things to do over the course of your weekend that this is the group that you think your message is going to resonate with? What in the hell is wrong with you? Where in the meeting planning did you think, whose hearts and minds are going to be able to change? Who really needs a protest? The gays. They're going to absolutely embrace us, because the one thing they haven't had to deal with over decades and decades are, protests and people disrupting their events and stuff like that. They're definitely going to really open up to your message and understand your community when you treat them the same way they've been treated for decades. Really? That's just stupid. I mean, who designed this? I want to speak to the people that are the Palestinian protesters that decided this is the way we're going to make our statement. It's like the asshats that decided to go spray paint Stonehenge.
Right.
Yeah, you need to be hit in the head with a hammer. Stop it. You don't understand what you're doing.
Dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters blocked the parade in Denver on Sunday morning, and one activist was arrested for assault after spitting on an officer, chanting "No pride in genocide" and saying pride started as a riot. The pro-Palestinian activists occupied the middle of the street near the intersection of Franklin Street and Colfax. The pro-Palestinian activists' tactic is not new. In Boston, the activists also blocked the pride parade, clashing with the police earlier this month. Denver's Pride Parade, which is among the biggest in the country, is occurring mid heightened political tension in a presidential election year. In Colorado and elsewhere in the country, activists and parents on both sides of the culture wars have clashed over sexually explicit material in school libraries, whether biological boys should be allowed in girls' sports, and the use of pronouns. At Sunday's parade, the roughly 100 protesters waited for the marchers at the intersection and then barged through, slipping by police and SWAT teams. The police officers didn't stop the protesters. 4 of the protesters blocked the parade vehicles, and then dozens more poured into the streets. The protesters then marched down Colfax in between Pride Parade, chanting "Free Palestine." Now, there's a picture out there of Tim Hernandez up on stage at the Pride Parade holding a pro-Palestine sign.
And he's kind of, made it very summary because he's added a picture of a watermelon on there. That's great. Just stupid. Again, it's talk about open, blatant hypocrisy. That's what you saw from Tim Hernandez on that stage, and then also supporting Palestine. Also, this is why, going a little bit back to last hour, I have a really, really big question for the teachers union about supporting him. And again, politically, you can support whoever the hell you want. That's fine. But don't you think that maybe when you're going to support somebody, that they might need to understand the facts, and they might need to understand the truth? Because again, Hernandez is free to support Palestine all he wants. But if he doesn't understand the blatant hypocrisy and overarching irony of his stupidity of being on that stage at the same time he's holding a Palestinian flag, then you're dumber than I thought you were. And I didn't have a really high opinion of you to begin with.
And this
personally.
is, like I mentioned, this is where I don't quite understand it. And maybe somebody can give me a call, particularly one of our Democrat or more liberal listeners, 303-696-1971. You can criticize Israel, but making the leap to be pro-Palestinian,
like
and I pointed this out because
here's the thing. I want to say this though. It's not, the thing is, it's not really pro-Palestinian, it's pro-Hamas.
Right,
and that really should be
exactly.
important in the conversation,
Yes.
because I don't know anybody that is Israeli that is anti-Palestinian. They're
Yes.
anti-Hamas, because Palestinians are allowed at times to live and work and even serve in the government inside of Israel.
They can come over, they can go attend school, they can do all that stuff.
And we have to remember that while we would not universally as Americans endorse everything that Israel has done in order to constrain the Palestinian state, some of that is because the members of Hamas like to throw rockets over walls and fences and like to shoot people. And some of this constrained community was the result of people inside the very community creating issues. And there were very, very few amenable solutions. This was an imperfect relationship, always was. But if you look at the difference in how one community treated the other over the arching of the entirety of history, the Israelis have done a good job. There are some Palestinians that are absolutely, things that have been done to them are absolutely wrong. But part of that is because the people that took control decided not to have elections and decided that, we were going to be the terrorist organizations, and that's it. And unfortunately, when a community votes for people that believes violence is going to be the answer, that violence will be revisited back on those citizens, because that will be the answer to your violence. If you are electing people in Hamas and their answer, part of their politics, is the violence towards Israel, you are also asking for reciprocal violence. That is what you expect, just like you tell your kid at school. If you go up and you punch that kid in the face, don't be surprised if they punch you back. For whatever reason you think you have, don't complain when they hit you back. What were you thinking was going to be the result of this encounter? Same thing here.
Now, do you remember about a year ago when a number of folks stood up at Parker Pride and stopped the event, just the gasping that took place, particularly among Channel 9, and Kyle Clark went and interviewed Jimmy Graham and like, how dare you? Why would you do this? These are people just trying to gather and you're interrupting it. And all they did was stand up. They didn't shout them down. They didn't stop the parade or anything. Do you think that Kyle Clark is going to go interview these folks that interrupted the Pride Parade downtown and try to shame them and go, how dare you stop this festivity and interrupt them? Is it the same level in your mind?
That's a good question. I think it should be. I think they should go after them. They should ask. And I think the protest in front of the drag show was misguided. I understand what they were doing, and I think their heart was in the right place, and they did it in the wrong way at the wrong place. And I think here, these Palestinian protesters, same thing. I think their heart is in the right place. They do not want these people who do not have any, power in this type of situation, relationship, and have been in a community that has been decimated in part because of, the constraints that have been put on the population, but also because the people in charge have been siphoning off all the aid money to do other things with. So instead of building the schools, instead of investing in healthcare, instead of investing in infrastructure, they've been investing in tunnels and rockets and bombs and guns and
themselves.
Other stuff.
They'll live in the head of Hamas lives in Qatar in a 5-star hotel.
That's a side story. I love the idea that these people are so important and want to lead Hamas, and they're so committed to the cause that they don't live where the fighting is. That's weird. That's really, really weird that you feel so strong and so committed to this community and what should happen
to your people,
but you're not.
I'm with the people
there. Yeah, that
in a 5-star hotel in Qatar.
That would be like if you had Martin Luther King just zoom in on all the meetings, the marches. He'd be like, "No, guys, I'll see you later," or he just shows up at the end and just, or they just had him carry a cardboard cutout the entire time. That's what it would be. He was there. He made the commitment, and they aren't making the same commitment for claiming many of the same, wrongs.
One of the things that I think is interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Billy, I'm pretty sure that the Pride movement has only advanced in historically Christian countries. You do not see a Pride movement in China. You do not see a Pride movement in Russia. You do not see Pride movement in Northern Africa. You see it in what has been traditionally, the word I'm looking for is tolerant. In traditionally tolerant societies that have come from historically Christian roots, right?
I'd have to go back and look at I'd have to go back because I'm not sure universally it would be Christian, but it would be tolerance. It would be the societies that have allowed for more religious freedom and more tolerance of freedom because there's
which has been Western Europe and the United States
has been more of those that has been and that's part of it. That's
and so on one hand you get this notion that the worst thing ever is from the left is like a Christian Judeo. We've got to get rid of the oppression that came from a Christian Judeo-Christian society.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, where you've had more domineering governments like Russia, Soviet Union, China, North Korea, all those types of areas, the Middle East, you're not getting, you don't have the growth of the LGBT.
No, you don't. But it's the only difficulty is you now, like the example here in America, are the same Christians that are going to be tolerant, etc., have, in my opinion, prejudicially labeled the entire LGBTQ community as groomers. That is the connection that is being made now, that community is grooming kids. And I think that's a problem as well. So while it is tolerant, the idea that they are accepted isn't necessarily always there. And that whole thing about I'd get on my big soapbox about the idea of groomers, about how disgusting that is, and how prejudicial it is, and how we're just going back to things that were said decades ago just to impugn a community because we don't like them. So while they are tolerated, acceptance is much, much different. And the weird thing is that unfortunately, the acceptance for that community seems to be greater as church going lessens in almost any community sometimes, is they seem to have more tolerance in communities that are less religiously affiliated, or at least fundamentalist. It's guys that are really, really hardcore into it, because you see more acceptance in places like Denmark, places like that. And Denmark has really, really low church attendance. It's one thing I found out this weekend. I didn't know they were that low.
Do you think the LGBT community is as tolerant to Christians and to other people?
I would, in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. And I think I think they are tolerant, but what they're asking for is to be allowed to live their lives like you live your life. They're looking for equality and equity. And because of the difficulties they've had to get to that position, they are much more prickly about it. And I do feel that there is a segment of that community that is bent towards revenge. And what I mean by that is wanting to make it so overt and so public and so in your face that you have to deal with it, because I believe it is in their mind, and I think it's misguided, in their mind, it's a reaction to not being allowed to be this for so long.
Yeah.
That now they're like, okay, then we're going to do it this much more. And for me, it's the idea of, and again, I think these people are missing the point of the Pride Parade, but when they show up in some of their, what I would say, very scantily clothed costumes and things that would be more involved in adult relationships behind closed doors. I'm talking about, we're wearing stuff that when we're going to get busy, we're wearing weird costumes, we're wearing stuff, we're in BDSM stuff, and we're dancing around in front of families. I think that does more harm than good, but I think it's a reaction to, hey, we weren't allowed to be this, so now we're going to be this in public, not understanding that we don't really want anybody doing that in public. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why during the St. Patrick's Day parade, if Shotgun Willie's has a float, they normally don't, but if they do, the one thing the people on the float are not doing is taking their clothes off. So one thing they're not doing on that one, even though that is what their business is at that point. If they ran through the St. Patrick's Day parade or any other parade, they're not having the people that perform at the club on there doing their performance right there, taking off their clothes. They understood the audience. And I think that sometimes they misunderstand the audience.
Yeah. And Bill, I've talked to members of the LGBT community who have said there is a split. It's not talked about a lot except for on this show.
Yeah.
But there is a division where you have those that have said, hey, we've gotten everything we want.
Yeah.
I can marry somebody if I want. I'm not going to get fired because I come out, all that stuff. And then, but they will tell me there are those in the community that are like, we need to go door to door and pull out the heretics at this point and go after them. And if you're a Bible believing Christian, we're gonna basically persecute you.
Yeah. And I see that also in some of the trans community as well, because inside of the LGBTQ community, there is some pushback against the trans community because, and these are in my experience so far, older gay couples. And they look at the idea of, hey, we had to fight so hard for this. You're now messing it up. We already got to this place where we're comfortable, and now you're making it uncomfortable again. And people inside the trans community feel betrayed by that because they were like, listen, we were also here while you were fighting. We were also here helping you get across the line. And now you're not willing to give us the same support that we were giving you, even though we are a subset of the community. We're asking for some support here, and you're telling us to shut up. And they're feeling very, very hurt by that community.
Is this the breakdown of intersectionality? This idea that we're going to stand with anybody that's being oppressed. So let me explain what intersectionality is. It's the idea. It's kind of the full weight of Marxism into our culture, where we define everybody by oppressor versus oppressed, and you always stand with the oppressed. You always stand with the oppressed against the oppressor. And so if the oppressed is Hamas and you're gay or you're black or you're a woman, you have to then stand with Hamas against Israel. And that's why you get Timmy Hernandez wearing holding a pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas sign at Pride. But if these people, and this is why I don't understand, if Hamas got control, gay people would be swinging from cranes.
Yeah, and there definitely wouldn't be a pride parade. I mean, again, inside of that, if it's the West, I think the West Bank is more liberal, and Gaza is really, really restrictive, I think. And it was something that I had to run across the last couple of weeks, reading about it, that there's a differentiation between the two. And it's interesting you bring up the idea of intersectionality and the oppressor and oppressed, because I've had some conversations with my kids and their friends recently, and they talk about how that filter, they say, is what has hurt some of the acceptance of larger communities. They say, in fact, it was a really interesting discussion where they said that was the reason that in many ways DEI failed many initiatives. And they said it's because you old people are putting it in, because it is boomers and Gen X that are trying to institute this. And they said, because, and this was really interesting, they said, because you grew up in a oppressor, oppressed, good guy, bad guy, America, Russia, Cold War, that type, World War II, there were sides. And almost every single major issue you had growing up had just two sides. There weren't a lot of other gray areas to it. And so then when you come to these type of larger questions, that your default position is always going to be oppressor, oppressed. And it would make sense why teachers in that generation would then mischaracterize Israel, Palestine, oppressor, oppressed, because that's the filter. And that's why you get these young skulls full of mush. And so these kids are pushing back, going, no, there's a lot more degrees. And it was really interesting to see them. And a couple of these kids I was talking to, they're my friends of my kids. They are in the LGBTQ community. And they were pushing back on the idea of even the Palestinian protesters going, no, this is wrong. You can't be on that side because there are degrees. And it got into really, again, I would take this show in a really different direction. But the one thing that we really delved into a long time was DEI and DEI programs and their opinions on that and going. And they basically said, well, it's because you guys set them up. That's why they don't work.
So they're not a fan. They're not a fan.
They're not a fan because of how it comes at you. They're like, because you guys set it up and it's always oppressor, oppressed. And that's not it.
There's a meritocracy.
Yeah. And then the DEI is more the idea that when we all get together and all of us have different experiences, that can make the team better, because we all see things from different angles, and understanding that just because you have always seen it this way doesn't mean that someone has also experienced, and just looking at their experience and going, oh, what can I take from that in order to make the team stronger? It was a really, really fun conversation with them. But they were like, yeah, you guys are the reason the DEI sucks. And I'm like, and it took me a minute because I'm like, hey, wait a minute. And I was hurt for a second. And then they started unloading it and unpacking it. And I went, damn, they're right. They're right, because we've all seen those DEI type of situations and things where, well, this is always right and this is always wrong. And the same thing happened inside the LGBTQ community. This is always right. This is always wrong. Mm-hmm. These people are right. These people are wrong. We can't have this. We can't have that. We can't possibly have a person that was born a male, that identifies as a female, walk into a female bathroom. That is always wrong. Well, it's not always wrong. It has a hell of a lot more to do with the individuals that are already in that bathroom. Has a hell of a lot more to do with them and their feelings than anything else. And that's what we have to figure out a way to respect. It's not that they should never be allowed to go in. They should never be allowed inside of a changing room. They should never be allowed inside of inside of a locker room. But should they always be allowed? No. And they said, that's on us. That's on us. And I never expected that. That was a real punch to the gooch. That was a real one where I sat there and I'm like, ow, that hurts. And it kind of hurt me for a while. And I've spent some time really kind of working through that and realizing that in some ways, they're absolutely right. That part of the problems are, we messed it up. Yeah. So it is our fault in some ways.
Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710KNUS app. I want to talk to you about my friends at QC Kinetics. Life in Colorado is awesome this time of year, but not so much if you've got that joint pain, elbow pain, knee pain, back pain. The good news is that QC Kinetics is here with the most advanced treatments using regenerative medicine. Look, I've got some folks in my life that are dealing with joint pain. The last thing you want to do, like at the end of the road, is go into surgery, because once they start slicing and dicing, you can bring in a whole bunch of other problems. QC Kinetics gets regenerative medicine, which means they harness the healing power from your own body to restore and repair your damaged joint tissue. So many of our listeners have done this, and they are grateful they're pain-free. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. This is the future of medicine, and the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics can get you started with a free consultation. QC Kinetics operates out of Aurora and Superior. If your shoulder, back, or knee or joint pains is always hurting, if it hurts to walk or lift something, you need to check this out. You can get lasting relief. Do it now so you can enjoy the Colorado summertime like you deserve. By the way, Billy, we were out rafting yesterday.
I saw that. Those pictures were amazing.
So the water's great. 3,000 CFS.
Okay, so tell listener what that means.
Yep. So it's cubic feet per second.
Yeah.
And they drop a little thing down right in the middle of the river to determine where it is. Now, I was a guide in 2002.
Yeah.
Which was the 100-year drought and the Hayman fire and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. We would wake up.
Trickle.
Exactly. We would wake up in the morning. There'd be ash on our cars because of the wildfires. 300 CFS.
300
CFS, right?
That's like when the water's just dripping in the
there's one
drip,
exactly.
Drip,
there's
drip.
one route through a creek, basically.
Wow.
At that point, this was 3,000 CFS.
Jeez.
So this is good for a lot of reasons. One, the adventure industry is just humming, right? It's so much fun.
Yeah.
The water's great, but more importantly, it's a ton of water for farmers and the whole ag community. So I was telling my kids, this is God blessing Colorado with great snow. Yep. That's where it comes from. It melts, goes down to the Twin Lakes Reservoir up near Leadville, and then they control the release down the Arkansas River, where I was a guide through Browns Canyon. So lots of water, lots of fun. But bro, I am not nearly as strong as I used to be, and that's the hard thing.
And the recovery afterwards. Oh,
I was a guy 20 years ago, and I was fit, and I was running, and I could row 20 miles a day, 2 trips a day, all customers having fun, and I was just out there.
Oh yeah,
old man on the oars.
And then what was it like this morning? Because that's for me. That's when I hit the ultra cur.
Yeah,
is that next morning, because it's like, oh, that ache. I got a shoulder, I got a hip, I got a back. That's like, ow. How does it hurt this bad?
We as young guys would always laugh at the old guys that would show up because they were pudgy. First of all, second, they were pale.
Yeah,
and they were weak.
Oh yeah.
And Billy, that's where I am these days.
Yes. That's okay, my friend. This is the thing. It's okay. This week, I'm walking around, and I always remembered my dad when he'd go around, and I'm like, my dad always wears the shorts during the summer, but he's got these pale white legs, etc. And I'm walking by, and I went by. We were out at the theater, and I'm walking by the kind of glass mirrored, it's not a glass, it's just the glass, the door for the thing. And I walk by, and I look, and I'm like, there's my dad's legs. The hell happened there?
Pale, and you're missing the hair because of the socks you've been wearing for 40 years.
Exactly. The hair starts like halfway up the calf. Yes. I turned and got my dad's legs.
100%. So, but it's great. This is a great time of year to go rafting. And by the way, always go in the morning. Because the storms come in the afternoon. They build, and then you rain. So if you want the best weather, you want the heat, all that stuff, go in the morning. But man,
what else should the listener know if they wanted to book a rafting trip? Not based on etc. But where in the state do you think is the best runs? And then what do you want to do? What do you want to make sure you do when you're going to book that trip?
So Arkansas River is the quintessential whitewater rafting, and it has lots of different options for you. So if you're 16, 18, 20, 22, and you're like, I want to hit it hard. Big water, crazy work. You want to paddle the whole time?
Yeah.
There's a place called the Numbers.
Oh, yes.
In Arkansas, which is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
Yes, I've done the Numbers when I was much younger.
And you work the entire time.
45 pounds thinner. Yes.
Yes. 4 hours. It's 4 hours of just hard work, but it's big water and tons of adventure. If you've got kids that are basically, 6 on up, and you just want to have a safe experience, you want to get whitewater, you want to get water over the boat and get wet and stuff, but you don't want to be worrying about your kids falling out and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Browns Canyon on the Arkansas. And then down in the Royal Gorge is also the Arkansas River. So the whole Arkansas River is great. But you also got Colorado River, Shoshone. There's tons of rafting options in Colorado.
Oh, it's so special. It's something that everybody should get out there and do. It's one of those really, really special Colorado experiences.
But if you got that joint problem, check out QC Kinetics, 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986, or visit Pain Free Colorado. Get a free consultation, 303-900-8986. All right, give us a call. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Stuart Smith, and here are the top stories we're following. The FBI is offering up to $10,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those thought to be responsible for the Ruidoso wildfires that started in New Mexico last week. 2 people died and more than 1,400 buildings were damaged. At the end of last week, President Biden approved emergency funding for temporary housing and low-cost loans. Full containment isn't expected until mid-July, as more than 1,000 firefighters continue to tackle the wildfire. Beijing wants the European Union to scrap its preliminary tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles by next week. Both sides have agreed to hold new trade talks to resolve an escalating dispute over tariffs, as Laura Westbrook reports.
EU duties of up to 38% on imported Chinese-made electric vehicles are set to kick in on July the 4th. But over the weekend, China and the EU agreed to restart talks. And while Beijing is calling for the talks, it's also warned of countermeasures if the EU doesn't back down. Now, the EU is investigating claims that Chinese EVs were unfairly subsidized by its government over concerns that cheap Chinese goods could flood the market. Beijing rejects those accusations.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Stuart Smith in London on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking about Pride this weekend being interrupted by pro-Palestinians. One spit on a police officer and got arrested for assault. Protesters also yelled at officers, with some holding signs that contain expletive towards the cops. They barged in right behind us, one parade attendee said, lamenting how the LGBTQ's march has been interrupted. It's just a justified thing to do, the attendee said of the pro-Palestinian protest, but it's the wrong place at the wrong time. The New York Times even bringing this up. The Gaza war is dividing the LGBTQ community. And this is what I just don't understand, Billy, is if they got control, if the pro-Palestinians got control, there wouldn't be any pride parades, and yet they're out there siding with them.
Yeah, then they're out there and they're disrupting the marches. And the thing that, and this is not acceptable, but the part inside of me always is wondering that if they're standing out there in front of the protest, what prevents the parade from just keep going
around them?
I mean, or
like
just go
water
through
around
them,
a rock,
or just walk through them. I mean, and here's the reason why is that, and again, I don't want to create the conflict, but if we have a parade permit and we are walking forward and they prevent us physically from walking forward, we now should have actionable items that the police can arrest them for. We now should be able to,
disrupting the event.
You're preventing me from moving forward.
So and you have the permit and you've gone through that whole process.
I've never understood why you can't just continue. Now, again, I do understand because people are going to get, a little punchy sometimes and pushing. But again, as long as you have the people on your side that are fine, you should be okay, because then they're the ones that get arrested. The other one I never understood, and again, I'm not advocating for this, but I don't understand why you just don't move aside and bring one of the floats forward and say, hi, we are going to continue to drive this float forward at about 2 miles an hour. You can stand there or you can move. And we're letting you know, and here are the police officers that are watching you, and we are letting you know we are going in this direction. Now, we are not trying to create an accident, but if you see us coming and you continue to remain there, there are some choices here that may not look kindly on some of your insurance. So let's just drive the car forward. And again, I'm not advocating for
running
harm.
over people.
Yeah, not at all. But I'm not advocating for them to disrupt in this manner. And what I hate is when they block the parade route, when they block the road. I am fine with you, whatever your stupid protest is, running the sides of I-25, running the sides of Colorado Boulevard, running the sides of Lincoln or Broadway down here. I'm okay with you taking up an entire segment of the parade route so that when they go by, they run right by you. Yes, but you get in front of the parade and you stop it from going. It's weird. No one ever did that to the stock show parade. It's weird.
Don't give them ideas.
Yeah. No. When you get 500-pound steers walking down the street, oddly enough, nobody steps in front and says, I'm not going to let them go by. Weirdly enough, it doesn't happen there.
Here's my question about that and these climate vandals. Yeah. Is it working? Here's Stephen Colbert. It makes me want to go buy a Hummer.
Yeah.
He said, across the pond in the UK, folks gathered at Stonehenge were yesterday to protest the UK's use of fossil fuels. 2 climate activists spray painted the landmark orange. He said, now look, I support climate action, but this makes me want to go buy a Hummer.
That is true. That is absolutely true. This is the thing. I understand why they're doing the protest like at Stonehenge. I understand why they're doing the spray paint, because everybody's talking about it.
Yes.
So they're getting media that they can't buy.
But is it winning anybody?
Exactly. And I think it loses people.
You're just a bunch of nutcases.
Exactly. I think it erodes the credibility of your position, your group, your cause, whatever it is, when you do things like this, because there isn't a single thing about environmentalism, climate change that involves spray paint or Stonehenge. And in fact, if you were mad about climate and you're mad about the oil industry, then you really need to research the ingredients you're using in that spray paint, because you're not going to be happy with them. Those are oil-based derivatives, you asshats. And again, I'm going to use the oil stuff to protest the oil. You're stupid. Stop it. I mean, if you want to protest and you want to be in favor of solar energy, go light yourself on fire. Good luck. And we'll all sit around and make s'mores. It takes away the validity of the actual protest because they're not doing anything. They're just trying to get attention. And then their cause is viewed as a bunch of little kids that are attention seekers.
Yep.
That's it. I mean, at least back in the day, the people that were fighting for the trees would go and live in them or strap themselves to them. Don't even get that anymore. Can't even get those people.
We used to watch Whale Wars. Did you ever watch that documentary?
Yeah.
That reality TV show?
Yeah. We'd watch that too.
So it started out interesting. Then got really boring.
Yeah.
And, they'd have entire episodes on, we have a boat problem.
Yeah.
We have an engine problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know what the fun part is? Have you ever watched, and I've watched several of these, ever watched the shows where they go and they catch like the alligators or snakes down in the South and they go hunting and stuff for them? Yeah. Yeah, that's fake.
And the repo.
Yeah. The
Those
repo
ones,
the
airplane repo.
Yeah.
Turned out to be pretty fake.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that one.
Where they would go and they would repo an airplane, jet.
Oh, jeez.
And they would sneak into the airport. I'm like, you can't do that.
No,
why don't you just walk into the airport and go, we now own the plane. Here's the bank statement that says we own the plane. Why you got to sneak around?
Yeah,
a lot of that stuff's fake.
Yeah, the thing with the alligators and the snakes and stuff, they rent those snakes and alligators.
Really?
Yeah, they're rented. Yeah. So they go out and they put them in areas and they go out and they catch them and they rent them and they bring them back.
Reality
yeah.
show.
So most of those snakes and alligators are rented.
That's hilarious.
Exactly. So it's
who's not fake and rented?
Who?
Dan Caplis.
Excellent.
Dan Caplis is not fake nor rented. He's the real deal. Dan suggests you should, first of all, choose a lawyer who shares your values. This matters. So I've known Dan for well over a decade. Dan's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. This guy is with us on the values, and he supports the show, which we really appreciate. He's also the son of a police officer and a former seminarian. This matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. This guy has got such just a positive vibe and a positive name ID and reputation in Denver that when you show up, people are going to respect you more because of it. And he's a titan in the courtroom. Listen to this. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. He's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. They trust Dan Caplis. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551 or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. All right, we'll continue. You choose the news coming up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, Billy, let's do You Choose the News.
Yes, right here, right now is the time where we get to play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. We have scoured the interwebs for mere moments this weekend to find really dumb stories, because, boy, there are a lot of them. And then we've given them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show. Why? Because the people in charge have no idea that we're actually doing this. No, they don't listen to the show, which is probably a good thing. Also, this is not promoted by Roll 'em Out Shelves. They're a wonderful mother-son team that will come to your house and they will solve your clutter problems, kitchen, bath, garage, wherever. They're phenomenal. They did incredible things in Jeff's house and my mother's house, but the one thing they won't do is support something as stupid and as fun as this. No, they're a serious company. Check them out at rollemoutshelves.com, rollemoutshelves.com, and they will give you a free in-home estimate. Just do me a favor and don't tell them about what we're doing here. All righty. Jeff Hunt, Blake Olson from the newsroom. Here are your choices this morning, gentlemen. Headline number 1, religious education finally in public schools. Headline number 2, quality, obviously job 1. Headline number 3, the soda of genocide. And headline number 4, encore, 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 encore. Your choice, sir.
There's a soda of genocide?
Yes, there's a soda of genocide. This fits nicely into the topics that we've been talking about. In Lebanon, there is now a backlash against Pepsi. They say Pepsi is the soda of genocide.
Of the Jews. Huh?
Yes. What they're saying is that Pepsi has recently changed their bottle cap. It went from the red, white, and blue swoosh that looks like a fat guy whose tummy is sticking out underneath his shirt to a white and blue design that does resemble the Israeli flag. Now, it's not on purpose, but they've done this before. Blue on top, white in the middle, blue on the bottom, blue letters Pepsi. Now, if you overlay the Israeli flag, the words Pepsi are exactly where the Star of David is. So Lebanese are looking to be a bit annoyed about absolutely anything and are mad at Pepsi. And not to be outdone, they're also mad at Coca-Cola, but I'm not sure why. They're just mad at everybody. They're just really mad people. So I don't know. They're
That's
just
going to be the
protesting
next
everything.
conspiracy theory that Nick Fuentes is out there pushing.
All righty. Blake Olson, the news department, sir. Religious education finally in public schools. Quality, obviously job 1, or encore, 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 encore.
I like the echo. But I'll go with religious education in public schools.
Yes,
Is that
finally.
right?
Yes, finally we are getting religious education in public schools. That's if the Oklahoma governor signs the bill that has just hit his desk.
Man.
It would allow credits for religious and moral instruction off school campuses. You can get that done. And the Satanic Temple has said, we are all ready to provide that. Yes, the Satanic Temple is saying they are ready to open in Oklahoma City the Satanic Temple Academy, and they are going to be happy to provide moral and religious education for school credit to all the young skulls full of mush. Be careful. Sometimes it's a cursed monkey paw that you are wishing on. All righty. Jeff, your final choice this morning.
Encore. Or,
now, this is important.
Echo. Sorry.
Yes, actually, it's encore because this is about a recent concert by Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar has had a beef with Drake, and during a recent pop-up celebration, well, he did his diss song, Not Like Us, against Drake, not once, not twice, but 6 times. Yes, that was the encore at the show. He performed the song 6 times in a row just to prove a point. Now, he didn't do each one the same. He did the original version, and then he brought up some other people to do it with him the second time, and then he changed it the third time. 4th time was an instrumental, so every time he did it, it was a different version. However, think about the last concert you were at. The headliner plays that last song over and over and over again. It's kind of cool. Can
you help me understand the fascination with Drake? I went and tried to listen to his most popular songs, and I'm like, what?
I don't.
What is the deal?
I don't understand.
I don't understand it either.
No. And again, I have spent a lot of times. I help program some hip hop and stations, which is really weird, as white as I am. But I do have history in that. I mean, I can go way back. I can go back to 80. Okay, I get some 80s cred. I had the cassette tapes for like Full Force. I know UTFO. I know Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. I know Melly Mel.
That's why I'm asking you this question.
Yeah.
Like,
I know Kool Moe Dee.
music.
Yeah, I know Kool Moe Dee.
How is Drake popular?
I personally, okay, people aren't going to like this. I think it has to do with a brain injury, honestly. That's people that have suffered severe trauma are Drake fans. It's a personal thing. I can't say there's any scientific reason behind that. I haven't seen any studies. I don't get it. I mean, the beats he does are solid, but it's the flow and what he does over the top of it that it just...
There's no songs that are catchy.
No, I just don't find it appealing. I don't
Everything
think
in the
we all.
last 30 years is garbage.
Oh, no, there's some good stuff out there. There's some really good stuff out
We
there.
were doing fine until we lost all of our Swiftie fans there, Blake.
No. What you got to do now, Blake? Okay, we've never asked this before. What's your genre? What do you like to listen to?
Oh, 80s.
80s? Now, is it rock, pop?
70s,
What do you like?
70s rock,
Okay,
classic rock,
okay.
80s rap. How about that?
Homework for you today.
Okay.
Rock band. Go find Greta Van Fleet.
Greta Van Fleet.
Yep. Close your eyes the first time you listen to them. You'll think you're listening to Zeppelin.
Okay, I love
Okay,
it.
check them out. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Homework for you. We'll talk to you in a sec, Blake.
When we come back, we're going to cover how California is rejecting phonics. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710K, and I need to buy a vowel, please.
Eight a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. It is Monday, June 24th, and you've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, pro-Palestinian, pro-pride, interrupt each other's parades. What's going on? It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So get another cup of coffee brew in Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after the news break with Blake Olson, California is willing to teach your kids just about anything except for how to read. The Wall Street Journal opinion piece over the weekend about how gender ideology, social justice, and Marxist ideas are all welcome, including being mandated, but phonics isn't. We'll get to that and more. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Wow. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. 76.
Blake, real quick,
yes.
did you use Hooked on Phonics when you were?
No, that was, let's see, I think that happened, 30 years after I was in elementary school.
Would it have helped?
Yeah. No, I used a lot of Ebonics though when I was in elementary school and middle school.
Do you remember Brian Regan did a great bit on how, you remember those old ads? Hooked on Phonics worked for me.
Yeah,
and how if the ad was actually about phonetical reading, it wouldn't have made any sense. Hooked did
right.
on phonics.
Right. Hey, by the way, if you ever come up with Camacho again, the first thing you need to think of is Macho. So Macho Camacho used to be a famous boxer who was actually killed 10 years ago. So when you see that, just think of Macho Camacho.
There you go.
One of the great fighters of all times. I was thinking that when you were saying that this morning.
Is likely going to be replacing Elizabeth Epps after tomorrow night.
Hey, man, Macho Camacho, he's got to use that in his branding, I would imagine. 76 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 90s today, possibly 100. Heat wave up and down the Front Range today for the next few days. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, a man is dead following a standoff, an officer-involved shooting in Commerce City over the weekend. A 29-year-old man attacked a woman, barricaded himself inside a home, and took a person hostage inside while the armed man with a gun was inside with a knife as well. The hostage escaped, and the suspect was eventually shot and killed by police. His identity hasn't been released. Today marks 2 years since Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. President Biden, I'm sure, will use that this Thursday in the presidential debate. Former President Trump campaigning, he was on the streets in Philly over the weekend.
Biden should have been a better president. He wouldn't be in this position. He's the worst president in the history of our country. Biden should have been a better president. He's let this country go to hell. We've become a third world nation. We're a nation in total distress. And we got to turn this country around, and we're going to turn it around fast. And we're going to drill, baby, drill. Right? Drill, baby, drill. Get your energy prices down.
Reportedly, Biden has been prepping with advisors at Camp David. Trump has no fear. His detail has to be going nuts. A woman wants to give her bag to Trump so he can sign it.
Come on, give me that book. Pass that book.
Can you sign my bag, Mr. President?
Yeah, give me your bag. Make sure you don't have a bomb. Do you have a bomb in it? It's all right. I trust you. If it blows up, you're going first.
Billy's like, man, I've seen everything now.
Blake, how do you think Trump's going to do on Thursday in the debate?
I think he'll do fine, but I don't think he can get emotional. I think he has to keep it, calm, steady, facts, and just talk. Don't get and definitely don't make fun. Can't make fun of him.
You don't think so? You don't,
Biden. No, I don't think so. I honestly let Biden do the talking. Let it just go all facts. Just talk about the open borders, talk about crime, talk about the economy, talk about the wars that have been created under Biden, the Biden administration, and just let him talk. And I would even be like, he needs to be respectful to the president, to the position, and then just let him, quote unquote, hang himself. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
So, Blake, you were right there. You're right there with all the pundits on Meet the Press and Fox.
Is that right?
Yeah,
no
that's what they said. They said make it policy oriented.
Yeah.
Don't go after him personally. I totally disagree.
Really?
Right. Here it's nobody remembers the Biden-Trump debates. They weren't that interesting, but they do remember the Clinton-Trump debates, and those two went at it. And here's what look. The last 4 years, Donald Trump has been going to MMA fights, right? He walks out like he is a fighter. I think people want to see him just lay into Biden, I don't care. Go after the personal attacks. Show up in an orange jumpsuit, licking an ice cream cone. Our country's driven into the ditch because of this guy. And just laying to him like you were an MMA fighter. Those guys don't go in there and just kind of jab around. They go for the jugular the minute that bell rings. And that's why people like MMA better than boxing.
Well, that's true. In this case, though, I don't think he should do that.
Yeah.
Because he's going to lose a lot of people that are on his side.
I don't know. I want to see it. I want to be entertained on Thursday night.
There are too many people in their 50s and 60s who have elderly parents, and if he goes that direction, man, just keep it policy oriented. And he can also say, a two-tiered system of justice, which is led by him. I get that. No doubt. But I mean, I wouldn't even bring up the fact that the guy can't walk. He has no idea where he is. He's being led around by Obama. I mean, go straight down the line with policy. That's my feeling, but we'll see. It's going to be everyone's going to be watching it. Get your popcorn. Reportedly, Biden has, we talked about that, has been at Camp David. Let's see. This is what I wanted to play for you guys. Kamala Harris, you'll love this. One breath away from being the commander-in-chief in a stupid promo over the weekend. She walks up to the door. So the person saying, "Can we talk?" is a man in a beard wearing a dress at the door of the cast of Queer Eye at the White House. See, in my mind, there's no doubt Obama is behind all of this.
No, Michelle is a trans.
I'm sorry, she's a what?
A transgender. We all know.
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh.
He is running the show. Obama's running the show, and Russia and China and Iran see all of this garbage. And then there's AOC getting a group all riled up in the Bronx over the weekend in a rally for Jamal Brown. She's jumping up and down. Billy would love her rap
she gets it. It's all entertainment at this point, baby.
It is. It's all entertainment. No substance. No, you're right. Maybe you should show up in a jumpsuit. Oh my Lord! I mean, it goes on and on. And then here's
such
Bowman.
An awful voice. That is a horrible voice.
Bowman is the self-proclaimed hip-hop congressman. Billy will love this. He doesn't know what a fire alarm is, but he knows what an F-bomb is.
I'm not supposed to fight back. We're going to show them who we are.
F-bomb.
We're going to show them who we are.
F-bomb. 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 And this goes on for like...
Bowman.
You ever notice how they always say 4 more years or the AOC or Bowman, but they never say USA. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
They never scream USA.
That's true.
A surfing icon is dead after a shark attack in Hawaii. Tamayo Perry was attacked on Sunday. The 49-year-old has also worked as an actor, appearing in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, Blue Crush, Lost, and a number of other productions. So a shark attack kills him. The Rockies making history. They beat the Nationals with the first walk-off pitch clock violation. The game was tied at 7 in the 9th with bases loaded, no outs. The pitcher had only 18 seconds to throw the pitch, but didn't do it in time, and the violation forced the winning run across the plate. Billy and I talked about this last hour, leading the Rockies to victory. Maybe they could have more of those pitch clock violations. However, last night...
Finnegan on 0-2. It is in there! And the game, the series, over. The Nets will get a 2 spot in the
Nationals win 2-1 in that one. The Stanley Cup trophy finally make its way back onto the ice tonight Edmonton, and Florida, the Panthers in South Florida tonight. Racing legend John Force, he has been hospitalized. He's 75 years old, and his car his engine exploded after he got out of the car at the finish line at the National Hot Rod Association Virginia Nationals. 72 in Superior, 74 in Inglewood, 76 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on this Monday. Blake Olson, let's go. Here we go. It's Jeff and Billy coming up with AOC. News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast calls for a hot start to the week. Sunny to partly sunny and toasty hot. Temperatures are going to be in the mid to upper 90s today. We're under a heat advisory. Lows tonight, mid-60s. There will be a few isolated thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. Lower 90s Tuesday, isolated late-day thunderstorms, a better chance of late-day thunderstorms, 80s and lower 90s Wednesday through Friday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Billy, do you think AOC screaming like that would be an effective alarm clock? Would it get you out of bed and excited for the day, or would you just roll over and go, I don't want to live in this universe anymore?
No, not at all. That's just ridiculous. That's just this is the thing that I wish people would really understand sometimes how to use the instrument that is contained inside their throat, because the issue with the screaming is that you get up into the upper registers, and it lowers the ability for enunciation and for projection. It really hurts. You've got to bring it down. Yeah, you've got to bring it down in order to really get to that yell. And here's the example: it's not a surprise, but I have kind of a big voice, kind of, and I have the ability to stop 99.9% of charging dogs in their tracks immediately with my voice. Universally, I have since I was about 19 been able to, because my voice projects and how I can. I've had dogs running at me, frothing at the mouth, and I can stop them on a dime by yelling at them. Usually this simple word, no. But I don't get up here. I'm not going, no. It's down.
I think
we've
come up with a new product to sell on the Jeff and Bill show, the Billy Thorpe dog stopping device. Just has your voice. It sends like an audio right towards the dog.
I had one dog that was trying to come through the fence to get at my other dog, at my dog. We're walking, and the thing's trying to come through the fence, and I immediately, no. Thing stop.
Is that all it is? It's just a forceful no.
Yeah, it is. It's a really loud no, because again, what are the danger signs for dogs? A loud bark or things like that. So you have to replicate that. And I give them the loudest possible bark they've ever encountered in their entire lives. And normally they go, gah, and they just freak out. Yeah. There was a German Shepherd that's about 2 blocks away from us that was running. This is like 2 years ago, running at my dog, because our dog, she is protective. And if she thinks, especially, and this is weird, like if there are people jogging towards us on the street, I have to get her up onto the grass, because she thinks the person running at me is a threat. So she goes into defensive mode. She doesn't want to bite them, but she gets stalky, and she goes, arr! She's like, it's go time. She's ready. And because she's protecting her flock. And so we had other dogs running at us. I had to stop that thing right away, because she was like, he's coming. She goes, it's go time. I am ready for this one. And she's absolutely ready to fight. And I had to stop him immediately. And he's at a full run and just right in the middle of the street. Yeah. But again, It's the loudest bark they've ever heard. Yeah.
I love it. Speaking of fights, there's going to be a fight this Thursday, June 27th. Will be the battle between the Republican and Democratic nominees for President Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, 9 p.m. Eastern. Here's kind of how they've set it up. There's no studio audience, which is fascinating. This is one of the earliest debates in all modern presidential history. They normally don't go this early in the presidential election.
I'm surprised not at 2, just because it's 2 old guys. When they serve the blue plate special, it's pretty much
9 p.m. Eastern. I was thinking that same thing the other day.
Exactly.
I'd be out at that point. But That's when they'll engage. It'll be moderated by CNN. There will be 2 podiums. And when the opposing person is not speaking, so when someone, so you have one presidential candidate speaking, they're going to mute the microphone of the opponent. So you're not going to hear Donald Trump make his little comments back and forth. So it's fascinating. I was watching the news shows yesterday. They were talking all about this. In one scenario, Billy, they said it could go so bad for both of them that Robert F. Kennedy looks great.
Yeah. And in all honesty, that is probably the best thing for both of them, that he's not on the stage. And that is because just if he looked younger and more vibrant, regardless of what was spilling out of his face,
right,
he would look that much better. And for low information voters, for casual voters, he would be the guy. So the best thing for both Biden and Trump is to not have him on the stage.
We've gotten text messages, and I kind of agree with them.
Yeah.
That they could not stand listening to that guy talk for 4 years.
That would be real tough. And it's awful to say that, but that is true.
Because do you want to explain why?
It's a throat issue that he's got. And so he's had it for years. It's nothing horrible. He can't do anything about it.
It's a physical problem.
Yep. It's just like Joe Biden and a stutter. There's nothing you can do. And it comes on set, and it's just kind of like a slight paralyzation of the vocal cords and some other stuff. So it is a problem. But unfortunately, I'm a little more sensitive to it because I've spent over 3 decades in an auditory medium.
Yeah.
And so the idea of the delivery is very important, and that is hard. And the thing that's very hard is it's the long-term delivery. Hearing him wax poetically on any subject gets difficult because of the delivery.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate. Nothing you can do about it.
So we're getting text messages here with regards to how Trump should approach the debate.
Oh, yeah. How should
1780. Good morning. I think that Trump should be very serious and presidential. He's fighting for the highest seat in our country. There's enough craziness and shenanigans going on. I disagree. And if you missed the news hour, I was talking with Blake about this. Look, politics is an entertainment medium. Donald Trump is totally unique. He has spent the last good portion of 4 years going to MMA fights to send a message, a visual to everybody out there that he is a fighter, that he's walking into the ring, that this is for the future of our country. Now, I'm not saying he should be childish or that he should just be, kind of ranting and raving or anything like that. But I want him to go for the jugular. I want to fight. I don't want a policy discussion. Boring. Come on. This is the biggest stage, 70 million people fighting. And when he said to Hillary Clinton, good thing that I'm not in charge because you're going to be in jail type of stuff. Those one-liners, those jabs, go for the knockout punch against Joe Biden. We're not messing around anymore. Here you have a guy that's nearly 80 years old who can't string a sentence together, who, walks around like he's a Roomba on stage. Put him down and win that debate. And show that the Republicans have the energy and the fight, and we're going to take this country back. That's what I want to see Thursday night. I don't want to see a boring discussion over policy. Sorry, I just disagree. I don't want to see that. Let's check in on John Littleton. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. How should Trump approach the debate?
Hey, good morning. Hey, I agree with Blake. I think there's no audience, so Trump can't feed off the booze when he comes up some great lines or cheers or all that kind of stuff. I think he's got to let Biden talk because they're going to cut his mic. And he can start every conversation when it comes to his time is because when Biden starts going with gibberish or under things that no one can even understand what he's saying, Trump says, boy, I have no clue what he just said. And then goes off on what he's done, what his policy is going to do, what he's going to do, because Biden can't defend anything that's done. And so keep it on pretty factual because Biden's only going to try to attack Trump. And don't fall for the bait. He can get in some great small things to ridicule Biden, but just keep going on what you're going to do, what you've done. You've been there, you're tested, you're battle tested, there's no wars, all those kind of things everybody knows. But don't go low on Joe because people at home are going to be sitting there, and they're expecting him to do that. And when he doesn't, they're going to go.
I got a question for you, John. Now, given our experience with Trump over previous 7 years now, have we ever seen Trump show the ability to hold message discipline? Because what you're talking about is him having message discipline on stage. I think he lacks that capacity. I think you're asking him to do something that he fundamentally can't do. What do you think? Is that a problem? Do you agree with me, or do you think he can be disciplined?
He got handcuffed during his trial pretty well. He spouted off a few times, but I think he's learning that, silence is there's times to be silent and make some little one line. Just in his rallies, he's not going after Joe to the nth degree. He's kind of keeping it above the belt. And his message discipline, I think, is better as he's gotten a little older. But
I'm not certain about that. I'm not certain I share that. I'm not sure I share that opinion that he's not going below the belt with Biden, because he talks about the Biden crime family. He talks about Hunter. He talks about
Billy. That's not below the belt. That's like out there in
John.
print.
Okay, wait, John, hang on. What major crimes has the Joe Biden family done?
Oh, it's like the Clinton. The crime family, Billy, is a euphemism for shady business. And so when you're getting millions and millions of dollars from foreign countries that are anti-US and to your kid, and it's funneling through 13 LLCs.
Yeah.
Do you have 13 LLCs, Billy?
No, but you know that Donald Trump has over 500. You know that, right?
He's probably got 1,000 properties.
I know, but hang on a sec. But John, your complaint there. I know, John. We're getting a little tangential here, John. Hang on. This is the problem, though, with that argument and this is a problem with the idea of saying the Biden crime family. We've had James Comer going for over a year trying to prove anything. He doesn't have anything. Biden's been in politics for over 3 decades. He has been vetted when he was running. Hang on a sec. Wait. Hold on. No. That's an issue, John.
Government salary.
John, hang on a sec. His net worth is less than most members of Congress right now. His net worth is right around $9 million, I believe, last time I checked. That's less than most members of Congress. But this is the issue that I'm saying. He was vetted twice for vice president. You're telling me that during all the stuff going on around Barack Obama, that if Joe Biden was really that deeply involved in crime and taking money from Russia and China and everybody else, it wouldn't have been turned up in the opposition research? That would have tanked Barack Obama immediately. Remember Barack being the non-American secret Muslim that was going to destroy America, and now he's picked up this criminal as a vice? Oh my God. That would have tanked him immediately. Oppo Research didn't turn up anything, and nothing that James Comer has turned up anything. And the investigator that was put in place by Donald Trump in the state of Delaware, that then was elevated to a special prosecutor that had almost 6 years of time to investigate the finances of Hunter Biden, didn't find the crime allegations. And that's going to be the problem, is because if Trump comes out there and says, this is the Biden crime family, he's got 34 felonies, and his business's Trump Organization has been found liable for fraud twice. He's also been found liable for running a fraudulent university and been found liable for running a fraudulent charity. That's not going to work. It just isn't. The messaging isn't going to work.
Bill, your timeline is wrong, because Joe didn't start it until he was the vice president. Not before he was the vice president, was the vice president.
And what did he do? What did he do, John?
Right.
Okay, that's great.
That's
what did he do?
Started peddling. That's
what
when
did he do?
Hunter started riding on Air Force One for free and going to all the countries with Joe.
So what?
All those countries that he got deals with.
And so what?
And so okay.
No. And what I'm asking, John, what I'm asking you about is
what Trump should do.
No.
He just says,
I know, Joe.
You know what?
I know, but here's the idea. Here's the idea, though.
Everyone listening to this,
Joe,
really knows what.
Joe, but hang on a sec. You understand at that time,
Jared, it's not hitting me in the face with words. I can't see it,
John. But
you got to use common sense, Billy.
Yeah, I do, and this is the issue. Yes, and let's use common sense. Let's use the common sense that how many while Donald Trump was president, how many patents was Ivanka Trump's businesses granted inside of China that were denied beforehand? How much money did Jared Kushner walk away from Saudi Arabia in his investment firm that was failing after he was involved in the White House? Which one of the current candidates took their children and made them members of the White House staff, one of whom couldn't get a security clearance. Which candidate was that?
Now, let's use your argument, Billy. If those were all true, why hasn't the Democrat-led Senate started investigating all these things on Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner? Well, if those were true, but they would be doing that. How come they haven't done that?
John, here's the thing, John.
That's your same argument you just gave me
John,
about the Trump.
No. See, John, again, you're talking common sense. John, her getting those patents aren't illegal. She wasn't in the government at the time, but the patents were denied until Donald Trump was in office. Donald Trump also didn't tell us about the bank account he maintained in China while he was in office. Joe Biden, Hunter Biden don't have those bank accounts. Donald Trump did have that bank account. Also the same things. Once Jared Kushner leaves and gets $2 billion from the Saudi Arabians, he's no longer in the government. So again, not illegal. But when you're talking about going to foreign countries and traveling and getting money from them, there you go. There you go, sir.
John, I want to get us back on the debate for this Thursday.
Wacko website.
John, you haven't been able to refute a single damn thing I've said. I've given you the timeline. I've showed you absolutely everything, man. We're going to talk about debate, but please.
I refuted your timeline, Billy.
No, I proved you were wrong. No, I didn't, John. Okay. John, you didn't refute my timeline at all, but that's okay. Continue to live in your pretty world, and I hope that your sunshine is very pretty today, whatever the hell color it is.
John, I want to ask you this question. Over the weekend, every Democrat on the major Sunday shows called Donald Trump a convicted felon. That will likely be some of the very first words out of Joe Biden's mouth on Thursday. An effective communication strategy. You think that's going to change people's minds on Donald Trump?
No, I mean, the world knows Trump's a convicted felon right now, and most people understand how that came about. Those 34 counts are all about the same thing, just recorded different places in the ledger. So it's like the same check got recorded 69 times. Why don't we have 69 counts on this thing? So I don't think it's an effective thing. And Trump should just let it go and continue with the policy. They all know what he is. Everyone knows Trump has been convicted, and people and his supporters and people and even independents now are realizing that was pretty one-sided in terms of the judge, what he ruled, what kind of rules he put in place, and the gag order is still in place. Trump has been convicted; he's still got a gag order, so he could even make fun of that. He goes, "I'd like to respond, but I've got a gag order." So he can do little funny things like that. But I think people want to see Trump showing what he's done, because Biden has no policy that he can say. He'll say, "Oh, I forgave loans," and he'll say, "Oh yeah," and the Supreme Court said that was unconstitutional. So, there's nothing Biden can crow about, and Trump just ought to keep it on what he's done and what he's going to do.
What about the CHIPS Act and the Infrastructure Act? That help at all?
What's that?
What about CHIPS Act, Infrastructure Act? What about that? That help at all? What about the fact that we've increased the amount of oil that we are exporting?
Look at inflation, Billy. Look at the prices. What is happening?
Well, you're not answering my question, John. You said that Biden didn't have anything to run on. He had the CHIPS Act and he had the Infrastructure Act.
Oh, those are big. Those are big. I bet
they are.
Like 6 people, 6 nerds walking around talking about the Infrastructure Act.
Yeah, because the one thing you hate, John, are potholes and bridges falling down. That's great, isn't it? The fact that we have these things falling apart, that's wonderful. Yeah. And how many times did Donald Trump promise that he was doing infrastructure? Can you remember? It was like every 2 weeks away. Did he ever get infrastructure done? Did he? The answer is no.
I think the Republicans got that done.
No, they didn't, John. They didn't. Not at all. It was Biden that got it across the line. Sorry. I'm sorry that he did something.
There's a genuine question as to whether or not that's hit the voter, though. So I understand. I'm not denying that the infrastructure bill got passed and that Joe Biden and the Democrats and did it through Congress,
and the major piece Trump and the major piece of legislation Trump accomplished
it doesn't seem to have hit people.
No. Yeah, but that's fine. People can be stupid about things. That's fine. They do it all the time. I mean,
if you don't agree with Billy, you're stupid.
No, John, you can come to John, you can come to the wrong conclusion. John, a second ago, John, a second ago, you said Biden didn't have anything to run on. I gave you 2 things he could run on, and you said, I don't remember those. And now Jeff accurately says, does those resonate with voters? That's a good question, but you didn't know about it. You couldn't remember that.
Oh,
You couldn't remember. You couldn't remember that
I
Donald
said
Trump.
it
You couldn't remember, John, that Donald Trump didn't fulfill his promise on the infrastructure. He didn't fulfill his promise on building the wall. Didn't fulfill his promise about reforming healthcare. None of those. None of those, John. So that's going to be the problem.
John, I appreciate the call. We've got full lines, so I'm going to get to some of these other callers. By the way, John's line is now open, 303-696-1971. We're talking how Donald Trump and Joe Biden should approach the debate this week. It's Thursday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time on CNN. Let's go to Francis Golden. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Hey, guys. How's it going for a Monday?
Oh, yeah. Doing pretty good. How are you?
Yeah. Hey, it's getting there. Hey, Jeff, you couldn't be more wrong, man. I mean, I'm sorry. You're usually right about things, or at least drifting towards the right, so to speak. But you can't be. The one thing that people remember about the last election really is how Trump came out and acted like a complete house ape with Joe Biden. That's why he lost the election. I mean,
I don't know if that's why he lost the election. But look, if we wanted somebody that was policy oriented to have a discussion, in-depth discussion on policy, and this is what every pundit said on Sunday, we would have put Ron DeSantis in or Nikki Haley. No, we want a fighter. Throw some elbows. Take him out.
I'm tired of the circus. It's way over. I want a functional adult. And Trump has not acted like a functional adult at times. I think we can agree about that. Biden, I think, is a dysfunctional adult and cannot reach a level of function if he ever had it. But no, we need somebody who actually acts like not a child, like a mature adult. And that's not Trump's default setting. Trump's default setting is to act like an insecure, immature kid. And he's got to not do that. That's exactly who he is.
Francis, here's the other thing I want to bring up. So I was in the room. Well, I was backstage during the Romney Obama first debate at DU in 2012, and I was backstage with the team, and because I was working for Governor Romney at the time, now Senator Romney, as his coalition director in Colorado. So you have a very unique opportunity typically with the first debate, because the president, if you remember that, especially in 2012, that the president isn't used to having to debate. So they're a little off kilter, and it's like you just haven't been in a game for a long time. So you're not used to the speed of it. And so you have a real opportunity as a challenger to kind of put them on their back. I think Trump should go all in on this one, and let's wrap up the election.
I don't accept your premise that Trump is the challenger here. I think that Biden is on his heels no matter what. And I do think that this sounds maybe a little bit mean-spirited, but I think Biden's mental faculties can be scrambled a little bit here. I think he's been holed up, getting advice, and basically what people are doing with him is buttonholing him over outlines of subjects. And I think if Trump can come out and actually hit him with a little bit of data and get him off of his outlines, I think it's going to make him look really confused, because I just think that's the fact. I think somebody Biden's age, and for that matter, Trump's age, I mean, neither of these guys should be running, but they get confounded by numbers, figures, dates, times. This is one of the things that, why do you think parents can't program their remotes? I mean, these are a problem here. And I think you could make him look confused, and probably because he's confused. But the thing you don't do is go out after him and start calling names, all the stupidity. I don't want to hear a name. I don't want to hear one word about the stolen election or any nonsense like that. I just want to, if he comes out and if Biden comes out and mentions the convictions and things, I think Trump just doesn't take the bait and just say, yeah, these things happened, I guess. I mean, and then press on. And tell Joe, I don't think it's productive to talk about things like that, like laptops and Hunter's problems. Let's talk about issues. And that's how you deflect that question and you move on. And I think that's the best way he could go.
Francis, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We're just out of time. Francis's line will be open 303-696-1971. Everyone always asks, what makes advanced hair restoration different? Allow me to share, along with some details on, get this, their once-a-year summer savings event. First off, Advanced Hair stands by the results, and their before and afters are second to none. With Advanced Hair, your own natural hair is guaranteed to grow. Secondly, Advanced Hair combines top-rated physicians with modern technology, creating a concierge quality experience that's hard to find elsewhere. And lastly, Advanced Hair's Advanced FUE begins regrowing your own natural hair the very next day. It's quick, simple, and easy. Now, if you have a flexible schedule this summer and you've been waiting for that special savings opportunity, it's here. Advanced Hair's savings event will get you the most hair for your dollar. It's their best offer ever. For details and to schedule your free consultation, give them a call at 720-459-HAIR. One-day treatment, life-changing results. Your new hair is guaranteed to grow. Before and afters are advancedhair.com. That's 720-459-HAIR. or advancedhair.com. All right, phone lines are just about totally full. Ralph, you'll be up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Stuart Smith, and here are the top stories we're following. The FBI is offering up to $10,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those thought to be responsible for the Ruidoso wildfires that started in New Mexico last week. 2 people died and more than 1,400 buildings were damaged. At the end of last week, President Biden approved emergency funding for temporary housing and low-cost loans. Full containment isn't expected until mid-July, as more than 1,000 firefighters continue to tackle the wildfire. Unidentified gunmen killed 15 police officers, a Christian Orthodox priest, and civilians in Russia on Sunday. They targeted a church and a synagogue in Dagestan, a majority Muslim region of Russia. Authorities say the 6 attackers who were shot by police were well trained and adherents of an international terrorist organization. 6 climate protesters interrupted the final hole at the PGA Tour's Travelers' Championship on Sunday. With shirts displaying the words "No Golf on a Dead Planet," they deployed smoke bombs and held up play. Both the green and the end of the competition were unaffected. The activists claimed golf fans should be particularly concerned about the need for strong, immediate climate action, as it's a sport that relies on good weather. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Stuart Smith in London on Salem News Channel.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. This Thursday is the big day. Donald Trump and Joe Biden debating for the first time in 4 years. How's it going to go? What should the strategy be? We're a little all over the place on the calls today. I'm more of the mindset that Trump should go in there MMA style. Knock him out. This isn't Ronald Reagan right now. We don't need quippy little quotes and policy discussions. It's time to take down the radical left. But even conservatives are disagreeing with me. And in fact, just about every pundit over the weekend said Donald Trump should be more policy oriented. Let's go to the phone lines. Ralph, Colorado Springs. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Ralph.
Good morning. I have the same question you do. And that's basically, what do the American voters want on Thursday?
Right.
Fact or fiction? You want, Jeff, you want to be entertained. Okay, understand that. Bill wants to be bored. I mean, let's face it. Facts are boring.
Yeah.
Now, I'm as old as Trump, and I'm confused. One thing that really confuses me is MAGA. Make America Great Again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When the people who are MAGA think America was great? Was it, we have to go back to Reagan? Do we have to go back to Eisenhower? Or do we have to do what the Supreme Court is doing, which is going back to 1787 and when they wrote the Constitution?
Ooh, Ralph, on a side note,
confused.
On a side note, I think you've hit on something that I think is the hidden genius in the MAGA phraseology, because it's open enough that it sounds great. And it also allows any individual to draw their own conclusion. They always assume, well, he's obviously talking about the time I think. Jeff could have a time. You could have a time. I could have a time. You listening can have a different time. All of us can have 4 different times that we're thinking America was great. But when Donald Trump says that, we all assume he's talking about ours. It's brilliant.
Precisely. And that's the question that I have is, do we want to be entertained, fiction, or do we want to actually try to do something, fact? Talking about MAGA, talk simply about fiction. When, what? Precisely. Look at what was done.
Why, Ralph, can I ask you a question? Why is it fiction to say that the direction this country has gone, which is definitely more progressive? Look, you have less church attendance than you had in the past. You have more progressive policies, things that 20 years ago would have been unthinkable, like men in women's restrooms, those types of things. Why is that? Why is being frustrated about that fiction?
Jeff, like I say, I'm as old as Trump. So I'm older or almost as old as all of the hills. And the thing is, America has changed and changed and changed again in what it defined as the direction it wants to go. I think the thing we need to focus on is looking factually at what the problems are. Let me give you an example. Everybody is blaming Joe Biden for inflation. Fiction. The real cause of inflation is the Federal Reserve. But we don't want to address the Federal Reserve because, oh my God, what would the banks do?
You don't think any of the government spending $34 trillion in debt has led to any of the inflation problems we have?
Oh, I have no doubt that it has. But then again, I go back, the first president I voted for, well, I can't say I voted for him because I was in the military. Okay, I go back to John Kennedy. Now, politicians are very, very good at spinning fiction. The problem is the American voters are not very good at figuring out what the facts are underneath all that fiction. All I'm saying is, folks, let's step back and try to figure out what the facts are in spite of all the BS. Now, I will tell you one thing, and then I'll get off the phone, and that is my theory on how we should based on my 78 years, we should choose a president. Historically, we choose a president the same way that we decide in the Missouri Ozarks who is the best teller of a fish story. He who tells the best lie wins. I think Trump's going to win.
Ralph, I appreciate the call.
Yeah,
I mean,
Thanks, man.
Here's the question I have. There are serious policy discussions every single day.
Yeah, those are boring.
On news channels like PBS.
Yep.
Where they will get into the details. They will get into the weeds on policy. And that's offered out there. It's not like it's hidden. It's offered out there and nobody pays attention to it.
Yeah.
We're an entertainment-oriented society. It's why Ronald Reagan won. But the culture's changed.
Yeah.
And kind of, quippy little ideas and one-liners like, Ronald Reagan had in the 80s, I just don't think are going to fly anymore. I think we're a little bit more combative in our politics than we were in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And we listened to AOC at the top of the hour, jumping around and screaming her head off. It made the news. Can you tell me what she said? Nope. Nobody knows because she was screaming. So, it's part of the culture of where we are. All right, Joe, we'll get to you in just a second. By the way, hot today, 97 degrees, 98 tomorrow, 93 on Wednesday. It's going to be 90s pretty much all week. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. How should Donald Trump and Joe debate this Thursday, 7 p.m.? Your call. Joe Littleton, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff and Bill. I think Trump will do what Trump needs to do because so far he's done pretty well. But the reason I called is that I know you've been discussing with some of these folks about there's a lot of stuff out there that you can see Trump with, but I haven't seen it till recently. And I was on a website called Citizen Free Press, and the article is called Trump's Best Interview Since Leaving Office. And I thought, maybe I'll look at that because some of them seem so much the same. This was with 4 businessmen who are entrepreneurs who give investment money to companies that are starting up. Very sharp people, probably from Silicon. I'm not sure on that one, but his interview was astounding to me. I mean, it was like a whole different light on Trump. He didn't horse around, and it was just enlightening to see it and to watch it. Now, that was my opinion.
Give us the name of it again.
It's under Citizen Free Press. You have to use your search engine for that. And then Trump's Best Interview Since Leaving Office.
And what did you like particularly about it? We got about 20 more seconds.
I just think there was a lot of facts, a lot of straightforwardness. I think that's how he probably runs his office and how he runs the presidency. And it was like, wow to me. But it was almost like Paul in the Bible says, I become who I become with different people, different groups of people, right, so that he can get what he needs out of that. I saw that. And
Joe, would you like to see that on Thursday?
I would like to see a little of both. I mean, I want to see Trump as Trump, but I love truth and I love the depth. So that's just me.
Great call, Joe. Thanks so much. All right, we'll continue this conversation. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. It is Monday, June 24th. It's a hot one today, 97 today, 98 tomorrow, and the 90s for the rest of the weekend. My goodness, let's get rocking and rolling. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes, well, most of the time, pretty crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. You're not going to want to miss this discussion. Coming up after Blake Olson's news, it's been 2 years since the fall of Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision. Good decision? Bad decision? Things better today? Worse today? What does the pro-life movement need to do to win more over? What's the pro-choice movement doing right? We'd love to get your calls and texts on this. By the way, they're spending, the pro-choice movement, $100 million, and they want to make the procedure more accessible and affordable than ever. So did the decision work out in their favor? Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710KNUS app. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 82 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 90s today, possibly 100. A heat wave up and down the Front Range for the next few days. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story. Yeah, AOC's screaming voice is annoying. That's the top story. Democrats ramping up and ginning up a lot of heat and excitement as the first presidential debate will take place Thursday on CNN. People will actually be watching CNN. The former president is ready.
Well, we had a great debate 4 years ago. We had two of them. They were both good. But I think what happened is the country's gone to hell. In the last 3.5 years, the country's gone down badly. And he's got to explain, why is he allowing 18 million people in here, many from prisons, many from jails, many from mental institutions, insane asylum. Why has he done that?
He's a globalist.
Why? No, he's somebody that hates our country. I don't think he knows what he is. He's not calling the shots.
Agree. Jeff wants him to go for the jugular. I say just wait, just see what happens. State the facts with passion, love for your country, the border, crime, the economy, the wars. Play rope-a-dope.
I'm going to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Now you see me, now you don't. He think he will, but I know he won't.
Let Biden wear himself out and then just collapse. Knockout. North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson laughs at people when they say Trump is a bully. That's all they got?
He's fighting all the communists. He's fighting all the socialists. He's fighting all of our enemies across the ocean. And sadly, he's fighting half the Republicans. How is this man a bully? How is he a bully?
Hey, today marks 2 years since Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. President Biden, I'm sure, will use that this Thursday in the debate. 2 people are in custody in connection with an early Saturday morning shooting in Lone Tree. It happened along East Heritage Hills Parkway, and the person who was shot has since been released from the hospital. Police haven't said what led to the shooting or what charges the 2 suspects may be facing. Governor Polis at the Pride Parade over the weekend.
It's really important to appreciate the history. I mean, 50 years ago, there were just a few dozen brave souls in that first parade, and some of them are still with us, which is wonderful to hear their stories.
Why is it important to appreciate the history? Maybe for some people it is. Brave souls, brave. I'll save that for soldiers and first responders. How about that? A surfing icon is dead after a shark attack in Hawaii. Tamayo Perry was attacked Sunday off Oahu, and the 49-year-old appeared in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, Blue Crush, Lost, and a number of other productions. Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals tonight between the Oilers and the Panthers in South Florida. Nothing like it, especially the sportsmanship from both teams after the game. It'll be classic. The Rockies made history. They beat the Nationals with the first walk-off pitch clock violation. The game was tied at 7 in the ninth with bases loaded and no outs. The pitcher only had 18 seconds to throw the pitch, but he didn't do it in time. The violation forced the winning run to cross the plate, leading the Rockies to victory. Last night,
Finnegan on 0-2. It is in there! And the game, the series, over. The Nets will get a 2 spot in the ninth.
Nationals win it 2-1. 75-year-old racing legend John Force had to be hospitalized after a crash at the National Hot Rod Association Virginia Nationals. Remember, he's 75 years old. He was able to get out of his car after the engine exploded at the finish line. 78 in Arvada, 79 in Littleton, 82 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Monday. The Power Hour coming up. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast calls for a hot start to the week. Sunny to partly sunny and toasty hot. Temperatures are going to be in the mid to upper 90s today. We're under a heat advisory. Lows tonight, mid-60s. There will be a few isolated thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. Lower 90s Tuesday, isolated late-day thunderstorms. A better chance of late-day thunderstorms, 80s and lower 90s Wednesday through Friday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, it was 2 years ago today that Roe v. Wade fell with the Dobbs decision at the U.S. Supreme Court. Has been a good thing or a bad thing? Kind of goes all over the place, especially if you listen to the pundits on the Sunday shows. They were talking about this as well, arguing and claiming that Donald Trump can't be clear on this and he hasn't found a way to be able to celebrate it, all that stuff. Well, Democrats have united around it. This was an interesting article from Politico. A new coalition of abortion rights groups is marking the second anniversary of the fall of Roe v. Wade with a pledge to spend $100 million to restore federal protections for the procedure and to make it more accessible than ever before. If plans shared first with Politico, groups including Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, the Reproductive Freedom for All are banding together to form Abortion Access Now, a national 10-year campaign that will prepare policies for the next time Democrats control the House, Senate, and the White House, and to build support for those policies among lawmakers and the public. At a private event on Monday evening in Washington, they will pitch a group of influential progressives on going on offense at a time when abortion is outlawed in a third of the country. So let me help remind everybody what happened with Roe v. Wade and the fall of it. So for 50 years, from 1973 until 2023 or 2022, so just about 50 years, you had essentially the idea that there was a constitutional right to an abortion. Now, I read the Constitution. Constitutional right to abortion. So what they had to do was root it in this notion of privacy. So they started first with birth control, that we couldn't ban and outlaw birth control because of privacy rights. That was Connecticut v. Griswold, I believe. And then they, from that decision, argued that there's an inherent right to privacy, of which abortion is a medical procedure that would fall underneath it. Now, originalists that make up the court looked at the U.S. Supreme Court and said, if you want to have a constitutional right to abortion, put it in the Constitution. And so they overturned it. And now this has allowed states to regulate the procedure in ways they couldn't. Prior to the fall of Roe v. Wade, you could only regulate abortion after viability. That was the line, but that line changed over time, right? As medicine got better and better, and we saw it in our own personal lives, that as medicine got better and better, and our daughter was born at 27 weeks, so she was born 13 weeks early. She weighed 1 pound, 9 ounces. She's perfectly fine today. She was viable, even though she was born in the second trimester. 30 years prior to that, children that young were not viable. And so the line kept kind of shifting and shifting and shifting, but the U.S. Supreme Court essentially said it's up to the people to be able to regulate this. Now, you've had states divide on this. Some states you had initially had already put it in laws. The minute Roe v. Wade fell, we're going to protect the sanctity of life. Life begins at conception. We're going to protect it. Or they put in pain-capable legislation so that once a baby can feel pain, will prevent abortion from taking place there. So you had those types of restrictions. And then in another case, places like Colorado, they put in laws that said that the minute Roe v. Wade falls, we're going to allow totally unrestricted abortion all the way up until the point of viability. Now, since the fall of Roe v. Wade, over the last 2 years, you've had 7 ballot initiatives that have gone before the people, both in favor of restricting abortion or in favor of expanding abortion rights. And in all of those cases, every single one of them, since the fall of Roe v. Wade, they've gone the direction of supporting abortion rights, with Democrats coalescing around abortion rights, getting more focused in on that. And then you have a portion of Republicans that are willing to break, saying essentially, while I disagree with it and I would never get an abortion, I don't necessarily want laws restricting it. And that is the kind of coalition that's been built where we are 2 years later. My question to our listeners at 710 KNUS and to you as well, Billy Thorpe, where are we going to go with all this?
Ooh. This is, well, in the short term, it's going to be used for electioneering. You're going to see it as a turnout mechanism. I think there are going to be, last count, I've lost count, but I think it's 9 or 10 states that the Democrats are going to be running some sort of an abortion protection type of a law. And again, and they will for here too, which seems weird given the liberal laws that we already have and the stranglehold that the Democrats have on our state legislature at this time. But as your wonderful wife pointed out, the real thing there is they want to get access to tax funding. They need to get access to the tax funding so they can fund it that way and then circumvent some of the federal rules. And that's why they're running it here. There are different reasons in other states. What I really appreciated is she outlined 3 that we should be paying attention to about why and how certain things go. I think this is a case of the Republicans being the dog that caught the car. And you've done this twice in the past 6 years, in my opinion. The other one was with Obamacare when Trump was in office. There were 70 plus votes when Obama was in office to remove Obamacare. And the chant was always repeal, replace, repeal, replace. And then you showed up when you had both chambers in the legislature and the White House, and you forgot the replace part. You got the repeal thing down solid. That was solid. You forgot about the replace. And that, I think, is kind of it here as well, is that we're so focused on the repeal, didn't understand the replace. And that having no replacement and saying, no, you can't, wasn't going to be tenable for a large portion of the voting population. Abortion access is favored by an overwhelming percentage of the voting population. When you get into when you put that line, it does change, especially when you get into late 3rd term trimester. But that's it, though, is the idea that, well, when we go to a 6-week heartbeat bill and things like that, that becomes more difficult and unpalatable for the voters. And I understand the argument about, well, what about the babies that are being killed on the late end? Again, you have to look at the percentage that's happening, but more importantly, the issue being that it still allows for the choice, that even the individual who may dislike it is still going to give the person the ability to choose because they also want to have that ability to choose. It's a very difficult, and I think it's been the wrong cudgel for the Republicans to pick up. Their whole idea of it's the Democrats that are the liberal or the extreme ones on the abortion, I thought was almost as ill-conceived as the Democrats saying we need to defund the police. I think that both those tactics were incredibly ill-conceived and were never going to resonate with larger audiences, and in fact probably did more damage to the brand than helped. But yeah, I think we may have this patchwork for a while. This is what's going to happen, and it's going to reveal a lot.
I don't think it's the pundits are all saying it's too hard for Donald Trump to overcome this. He can't make up his mind. You know, he wants to celebrate it, but then it's not celebrated by some of the electorate. I think it's really easy to say, well, this was the whole point of the decision in the first place, is that we can actually debate this. You didn't have this type of debate under the Roe v. Wade framework. And so if some states want to restrict abortion, they can, if others don't. And, you know, I think everybody knows where I stand on this. Life begins at conception. It's a moral issue. We should stop abortion at that point. But if Donald Trump feels like in this culture he has to win, he can't win on that message, and he's going to go, you know, I'm going to leave it up to the states to decide. I think that's a fine. I don't think he's going to lose elections over that.
That is the most savvy and intelligent tactic that either side could take. That is the smartest one that they can take, because then it allows the states and the individual to make the choice. The problem is when you get into people both on the Democrat and the Republican side of the aisle, and we've had some of the Republicans in here, and you ask them about whether or not they would support a federal abortion ban, and they say yes. The problem you have then is it undercuts the message about this is always about states' rights. This was about, and this is why I felt the celebration post-Dobbs was incredibly disingenuous, because it was all about, this is all we ever wanted. All we ever wanted was to have this go back and make it states' rights. And now the states can make the choice.
Some people did.
But that was the overarching theme. And there is a push behind the scenes to absolutely make it a federal ban. And the other part that I think...
I'm one of them.
And the other one that I think hurts is the idea of when the states want to make it criminal for you to leave the state to get that procedure. They want to prosecute you for something you're doing in another state. That becomes a real issue. That is a tremendous overreach and is going to severely harm the pro-life side of things, because you're not allowing that person to make that choice. And the idea being that
those haven't passed yet.
No, but so they're no, I want to say Texas is the one. I have to look though. But again, they're pushing it really, really, really hard, and they want to. I think Texas did pass that they can criminalize you if you leave. Maybe not though. But it's, again, the idea that you're even pushing that. What's the message you're sending to those voters? What's the message? And the problem will be is that if you really wanted to make it a states' rights issue, if you're going to try to prosecute someone that leaves the state for that, for any reason, or anybody that helps them, the idea of, prosecuting the doctors, anybody that helps them get the abortion, that leads the response to be a national pro-abortion law, because that's the way they have to solve it. If they're saying the states are even going to tell people it's illegal to leave the state and go do something else, then that's going to actually reinforce a national pro-abortion law. If you want to get the exact opposite of what you desire, keep pushing those restrictive laws inside the state, and you will end up getting the exact opposite of what your heart desires.
I'd love to hear this from the listeners. Do you think Republicans should abandon the social issues? Have this created too many problems for them? Would it be better if they were just economic conservatives? We hear that a lot in Colorado, that it's the social issues that keep people away. We should just be more focused on the economic, Tabor, free market stuff and not get into the social issues. And maybe we could start to win some seats back. Are we losing electorally because of our social issues? Or, as I believe, a core fundamental conservative worldview requires you to advance policies that support strong family growth and protect universal truths, which include the sanctity of life and the fact that life begins at conception. Give me a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. All right, I'm going to show up a little thing. You got to watch this on our YouTubes or our Rumbles or our X's. Go to 710 KNUS, because I'm going to show up a piece of paper. This is kind of what we were taught in grad school at George Washington University in political management, okay? So I have a little graph up here, and you have right and left on one side, and then you have the middle, and this is kind of the electorate, okay? So you have a pendulum, and it kind of swings back and forth based upon the issues. So for years, 50 years in this country, you had abortion with limited restrictions on it. So it allowed conservatives to galvanize and to focus in on the Supreme Court's wrong decision in Roe v. Wade and to gain support over it. Okay. 2 years ago, Roe v. Wade falls and the pendulum swings back now towards the left. This is going to take work. But look, the United States for the last 50 years saw abortion as birth control. And I've talked about studies that have shown that a vast majority, somewhere near 90%, are recorded primarily as a form of birth control. It's not the health of the mother. It's not a diseased baby at the very end of the third trimester. It's going to be a vast majority of for portions of birth control. So we have said as a culture that having children outside of wedlock is an acceptable activity. You can go down to the club, you can hook up, you can go to the bar, you can hook up, and abortion will be the safety relief valve for you to not have to bear the responsibility of those decisions that you make. And then all of a sudden, culture gets to make decisions with regards to abortion. Of course, they're going to go back and embrace the idea that abortion could be a form of birth control. It is going to take conservatives. We got the legal victory of getting Roe v. Wade out of the way, but it's going to take conservatives not only addressing the idea that life begins at the moment of conception, has all the rights and guaranteed privileges that come with being a life at the moment of conception, so that meaning that life deserves to be protected and the government has a vested interest in protecting that life. But we need to rebuild a culture that embraces the family holistically, a mom and a dad pouring into their children. I'd like to get back to the idea of a single income so that parents are not both having to work. All of that is linked in my mind with a breakdown of a culture that does not embrace family values. And all of that, including the sanctity of life, needs to be rebuilt, and conservatives are the one to lead that. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Nick, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Nick.
Thank you very much. A lot of people would say that since I'm a man and I have not had the sex change operation, I have no right to talk about something that really doesn't affect me directly. It should be just a women's issue, but I disagree with that. I think the Supreme Court finally made the decision, the right decision, and got it out of the national government. It should be a state right issue, and you're absolutely right. We're going to have to rebuild the culture and let each state figure it out. Now, the one thing I would add is that if medically speaking, it's determined that an abortion is absolutely necessary to save the life or at least protect the life of the mother, there should be some kind of legal way or administrative way where a woman can do that.
Yep.
And if she has to leave the state, that's fine.
Well, Nick, there's not a single law right now in the books, even in abortion restrictive states, that does not prevent a woman from receiving what is medically necessary to save her life. So that's a misnomer that comes from the abortion side, that somehow we're sacrificing women's health in a dire situation in order to save a baby. That's just not the case. But here's the question I have for you, Ralph, or Nick. Our country historically does not allow deeply moral issues to remain simply at the state level. And I'll give you two examples: slavery and gay marriage. Okay. In both those settings, they started out as states' rights issues. If you want to be a slave state, you could be. If you want to be a free state, you could be. But eventually, our country ran into the moral question of whether or not a slave is a human being or property. And we fought a war to settle that. Gay marriage. You had some states where you could get married, some states you couldn't. The United States Supreme Court stepped in and tried to solve that moral question. I don't think they did a good job on it, but tried to solve that moral question as well, saying you can't have it in some states and not in others. So how, when you have a moral question as deep as this, when life begins and what rights are guaranteed to that child when life begins, can you allow some states to have a definition that says, well, 40 weeks into gestation, moments before birth, yeah, go ahead and kill. Go ahead and kill. It's not a big deal. and other states say no at the moment of conception. How do we live in a country where you have two different fundamental worldviews on that issue?
Well, that is a very tricky, very sticky question, and it cannot be resolved by yes or no answer, and it can't be resolved right now. You're right. The culture has to be rebuilt, but I still don't want the abortion issue back on the national level again. It creates more problems than it solves.
Nick, I appreciate the call. Thanks so
Good
much.
point.
Nick's line will be open 303-696-1971. We'll continue with this conversation on the 2-year anniversary of the fall of Roe v. Wade. Jim, you'll be up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Stuart Smith, and here are the top stories we're following. The FBI is offering up to $10,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those thought to be responsible for the Ruidoso wildfires that started in New Mexico last week. 2 people died and more than 1,400 buildings were damaged. At the end of last week, President Biden approved emergency funding for temporary housing and low-cost loans. Full containment isn't expected until mid-July, as more than 1,000 firefighters continue to tackle the wildfire. Unidentified gunmen killed 15 police officers, a Christian Orthodox priest, and civilians in Russia on Sunday. They targeted a church and a synagogue in Dagestan, a majority Muslim region of Russia. Authorities say the 6 attackers, who were shot by police, were well trained and adherents of an international terrorist organization. 6 climate protesters interrupted the final hole at the PGA Tour's Travelers' Championship on Sunday. With shirts displaying the words "No golf on a dead planet," they deployed smoke bombs and held up play. Both the green and the end of the competition were unaffected. The activists claimed golf fans should be particularly concerned about the need for strong, immediate climate action, as it's a sport that relies on good weather. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Stuart Smith in London on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's the 2-year anniversary of the fall of Roe v. Wade. Doug texting in. Morning, guys. GOP wins on fiscal issues. Unfortunately, too many people will vote on a single, usually social issue, where they will see the GOP as extreme or old-fashioned. Abortion, for instance, isn't framed as returning it to the states, but is trying to take away a woman's rights. I know more people will vote Democrat on that issue at the expense of their overall well-being. That is, Doug, to that point, I do agree with you on that. It is like the issue for the Democrats. They will watch cities burn and become catastrophes of feces.
Yeah.
And still vote against Republicans on that issue alone.
And Doug, very, very insightful. And I believe you are 110% right, because the social issues are emotional issues, and emotional issues resonate better than fiscal issues. The emotion, think about it this way, that you can have all the stress that you have in your life, all the stuff that you're worried about, mortgage and bills and job and things like that, and credit card debt. But something that emotionally happens inside your life, something that really kind of hits, that's a social issue, someone that's, in your family, maybe your family's, not originally from the country, and someone yells things at you down the street, or the idea that, you're concerned about certain aspects of our culture and society based on where our morals and ethics and values are. Those resonate a lot better than the fiscal issues. It's hard to get people excited about the calculator. It is really, really hard. But if you can couple the emotion with the calculator, then you can win. But that's what you got to do. That's why they talk about focusing on those kitchen table issues, because it's emotional to be able to put food on your table. The numbers are without emotion, the actual job, etc. But that stress and everything else, and the struggle, then you can turn it into an emotional issue. How are you feeling about this? Because remember, that's what they talk about. Not, hey, budget doing okay? Family, did you balance the budget? No. They're asking about how difficult it is for you to do X, Y, and Z. That's where the emotion wraps in. You're right, Doug. You're absolutely right about that. That when you get into those emotional social issues, it gets harder to persuade people of the better fiscal issues that the GOP has.
Let's go to Jim, Colorado. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, good morning, guys. I agree with you on a lot of different things. I'm not sure about this one here, the conception thing. I know what conception is, but who gets to determine when conception happens?
Well, I think that's when conception happens, right? When the egg and the sperm fertilize and then embed in the wall of the uterus.
So who gets to determine when that actually occurred, or if it occurred?
Well, I'm not quite sure I understand, Jim, because the law would be that you cannot intentionally kill a preborn child. So if there is a preborn child, you can't kill it. If there's not a preborn child, right? Like it just naturally expels itself, then that wouldn't be considered murder, because the point being, what they're trying to stop here is if you go back to the actual procedure of what abortion does, right? You have a viable child inside a womb growing, and we take steps to intentionally end a life. So that's what the law is seeking to prevent.
I mean, do I, after I have a good weekend, do I go into my employer on Monday morning and change my withholdings because conception occurred? I mean, who gets to regulate this? How far does this go through the courts?
So you're talking about your tax withholdings?
Sure. So,
well, I'd be happy. I'd be happy if you took that at the moment that you announced the pregnancy. I think that would be fine. It'd be less government, less money to the government,
right? So, Saturday night I meet a girl. Monday morning I go in and change my withholdings, and then I get a different tax rate.
The other one would be,
is that
Jim,
what we're looking for?
The other one would be, does that woman, once she conceives, is she now allowed to pilot in the HOV vehicle lane for free?
Yes, 100%. I love that.
Yeah, but they've been pulled over and ticketed for it.
Yeah, they shouldn't be.
Well, I
I
know,
don't
but
think it matters what the woman wants. I don't think it really matters. I mean, we're figuring this out without her.
Jim, I appreciate that. I appreciate the sentiment that you were doing there, and I think that Jim is outlining some of the problems that are contained therein, because it does come down to who decides. And that is a difficult conversation.
What do you mean who decides? It's either a life or it's not a life. What do you mean who decides?
Yeah, who decides? Yeah, who gets to decide when life begins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, right now we're saying life begins once it takes a breath.
Yeah.
All we're saying is that no, it doesn't. Life begins at the moment of conception. So we're already as a culture saying this is when life begins.
Well,
and the pro-life is saying that's way too late. The life's already been created. It's viable outside the womb. So saying that once it takes a breath is the line? No. But once it's conceived is the line.
Our Jewish brothers and sisters believe once it takes the breath, it has to pass out of the birth canal and takes its first breath, the breath of life. That's where that statement comes from inside the religion. The other part, though, is where the pushback comes from is it's not that society is deciding, it's that you're allowing the individual to decide. And that's the difficulty that you have to overcome in the abortion issue. Is we either say that we all can't do it, or we're going to allow people to choose. And that's a difficult argument when you're telling people they're not going to be allowed to make the choice. That's a real.
But we do
issue.
that. We do that on a lot of social issues. So to me, that's not an excuse not to do it just because it's hard or because some people disagree. No. There are certain things that we as a country say are true. All human beings, for instance, are human beings, not property. We fought a war over this. So we make hard moral decisions. And especially if they are true and right, we stand on those. All right, let's go to Jim in Littleton. Jim, you're on the Jeff and Bill show. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's a very thought-provoking topic. I just think it comes down to morality, and you can't legislate morality in that whole issue, because there are people that believe life at conception, and there's people that believe that through the birth canal, and that's a morality issue. But my point is that I think, let me finish this. I think it all stems to the family issue. I don't know how many times abortions happen in married families, but I'm willing to guess it's very infrequently.
Yeah, it's far less than singles. Yep, you're right about that.
Yeah. I'm in science, and I would love to see, I wish there would have been a study concerning the reason why women get abortions. I think one-night stands, that does occur, but I think actually it comes down to this. Instead of America looking down on single mothers or saying we shouldn't celebrate that, every time I turn on the news and they talk about the number of children born out of wedlock, I think it's close to 70-80% of Black kids are born out of wedlock. I think our numbers on the white side are going up. Never is it looked at, wow, that's not a good sign. It's always looked at, wow, that's great news type of thing. And I think that it's a morality issue right now. And I think until we say as a community, it's better. And I think the economics clearly prove that two parents are much better for a kid's development than a single parent.
Yep.
I think that no one will dispute that.
Yep.
We need to go down that route of saying, you know what, a family is the glue to America on the development. And until our government goes out opinion, we're going to have these situations. You know, there was a time in America, single mothers went to a place to deliver their babies, and then they put them up for adoption. I guess that doesn't happen anymore. But there were those places where the women could go away.
No, we do have adoptions. We do have adoption facilities. The issue is the women were going away because of the societal pressure. Because if the woman showed up as a single woman that was unattached and had the baby, then she was a whore. And so that was it. And I know, and I personally, in my life, this is through my employment. This isn't people that I know, but I was around two different very well-known families in the community that took their younger daughters out of state because they had a little bit of a problem. And so they took a little vacation.
John Suthers was actually the result of that conception.
Yeah.
His mom was sent from, he writes about it in his book, Indiana, I believe, out to Colorado, where she worked for a Catholic newspaper for a summer.
Yep. And that was the exact thing is the daughters were going to do this for a summer. And then they came back, and and of course the daughters talked.
Right.
So it made it way to the grapevine. But because nobody listens to the help, they forget we're here.
Well, again, until the society starts saying that single mothers, that decision is not a good idea. And then, from the point of view, I don't know why there couldn't be some sort of financial component for these single mothers if that either they would be helped out, because I'm sure finances come into this whole thing as well. I can't afford and stuff.
It's the
like
number
that.
one
That's why
reason.
I'm gonna have an abortion.
It's the number one reason.
Okay, so if that's the case, I would rather see my tax dollars going towards versus an abortion to helping these mothers out, to help them get through the financial point to the point of where they give the child up for adoption. I don't think it's a good idea for single teenage mothers to be out there trying to raise their kids. It just rarely works out well for the child as well as for the mother. I would like to, do you know how difficult it is to adopt in America?
It can be very difficult. And Jim, I want to stop you right there because there's something, again, I agree with you on so much of that. But if you spent more than 10 minutes listening to the show, I also like to make things difficult. So I'm going to make things difficult, not in a bad way, but trying to change the conversation a little bit. I like the idea that you're saying we need to provide some sort of support for these single women. But what I'm going to say is I can pick up that statement, that wonderful, lovely statement you have, and change the words around and say, Jim wants to create more welfare queens because he wants to give women a free government check for having a baby. That's going to be the argument against it. Here's the thing is, I'm on your side. I think the support needs to be there and it would lessen the number of abortions. But how do you, I, and Jeff overcome that welfare queen stigma?
Well, my answer to you is I'm not saying you're going to make money by delivering that baby. I'm saying you're going to be made whole so that you're not, if you submit expenses, you get compensated. I don't want them to come to the point where, well, each baby I deliver, I get X amount of dollars. That's not what I'm saying.
But with each baby,
that doesn't
it would
bother me. To be honest, that doesn't bother me
but
as
in
much.
But in each baby, there would have to be subsidies. So there would be an increase in things like, it would be an increase in the amount of food stamps or food support you'd get. Each one would be an increase. And so that's what I'm coming at. I appreciate the idea, like not a sole check. So that's excellent. But what about that cycle? I mean, and because I think your idea is right, but I think that's the pushback. That the argument about you're creating welfare queens and dependent upon the government is the difficulty inside the conversation. That's what we have to overcome.
So, but I don't know if I do, because here's how I see it, Billy. The fact that a human life has been created, the statistical probability that has happened is 1 to the times to the 4 to the power of 16 zeros. It has, in my worldview, infinite worth created by the God of the universe. And so even if policies resulted in more welfare queens, that is, in my mind, infinitely better than the execution of a preborn child.
I agree with you, but here's the point I will say. I have yet to see any woman, well, there's no studies on that, regretting giving your child up for adoption versus having an abortion. The data clearly shows that women are impacted by abortion. And the fact of the matter is, there could be a way of doing this to show, if a woman's doing this multiple times, then maybe there has to be a limit on how many times they're going to do it. But again, I'm saying that child has to be given up for adoption.
Jim, I appreciate the call. We're just out of time. We'll continue this conversation. Jim's line will be open. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking the second anniversary of the fall of Roe v. Wade. Let's go to John, Centennial. John, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Hi. I'm just so I don't mislead you. I'm against abortion, but I don't really think it's the state's place to say whether or not somebody has one. I think it's between them and God. And I think if you have one, if you actually believe in God, you're gonna you got some explaining to do. But I don't think it's the government's place to to say, oh, you can't do that.
John, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this quick question. We're just running out of time, so sorry to interrupt you, but don't you think the government has a role to defend the right to life?
Yeah, but I don't think the government has a right to the state or the federal government has the right to approve to have a death penalty. I think
but imagine imagine the toddler, for instance, right? You have a toddler, the toddler's not being fed, the toddler's being thrown into a closet, the toddler is malnourished. Doesn't the state have a role to step in and protect the rights and interests of that toddler?
I think you're twisting it. I think that that once you're born, it's one thing.
Right.
I don't think you should be able to abuse children. But by the same token, I don't think the government should be able to say, "Oh, you can't make this decision."
Yeah, I think you're right, John. And I think where you're going with it is the idea that, the government, as Jeff said, should have a vested interest in the well-being of their citizenry. But the difficulty comes when you have to put in the religious and moral ethical implications, because if you are tried and true and you are so strong in your faith, then you honestly believe that you're going to have to answer to our Lord and Savior. Why didn't you try to save the little ones? Because that's the message he's giving you. And that's where it becomes difficult morally. I appreciate the call, John. Thank you so much.
All right, let's go to Sue. Sue, you're up next on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning, Sue.
Good morning, Jeff and Bill. Yes, I just I study this whole abortion, pro-choice, pro-life topic, and I wanted to say first off, if anyone wants to stay afloat of the current narrative, they need to make an alert on their Google account if they have a Gmail. Go to alert and put in abortion, and that way every news article nationwide that has abortion.
That's a great idea. Sue, we're just out of time. Thanks so much. We'll continue this conversation. We'll continue it tomorrow. Be sure to tune in to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.